Welcome to Jacket Jockeys with Justin.
Which one is Justin?
Me.
Oh, why are you referring to yourself in the third person?
Because it's an intro to a podcast and I want to tell people who we
Oh,
are.
oh, it is I, everyone.
Oh, you're I now. Wow.
Yeah,
With correct
it's
grammar.
it's me, comma Jennifer.
That's not even what you go by, but
It's
all right,
so weird
whatever.
that you ADR'd my name in there.
Charles Whitbar.
It's me,
Um,
Charles Whitbar. Well,
Speaking of,
great. You've got some folks online who are gonna love that you've already made a Lost reference.
I know, right? Yeah, so I actually wanted to start with that. Hey everybody, good to see you. Glad you're back.
Hi,
Um
we can see you.
yeah, I like to look and see what the feedback is. I was looking at the Apple podcast reviews. There was one that came in that was not particularly positive, and I just wanted to read it and just briefly address it. No rage here. It's all good. Before I go into this, I just want to specify that I listen to other Yellow Jackets podcasts and get mad all the time. So I know what it's like, okay? And like this one might not be the one for you. That's okay. You don't have to like it. If you want to hear like whatever the other ones are doing that like drives me crazy, go for it. It's your thing. Do what you want to do, etc., etc. I can't tell you who to sock it to. Anyway, this review came from someone named Jay
Wait, why are
Patag.
you saying their name? Isn't that mean?
I mean, it's publicly read. I mean, anyone
Okay.
can read this.
Okay. You're not like doxing.
No, I'm not. This isn't a doc. It's like a username.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
JPatag66. I don't actually know how to parse that. Is it JP a tag 66? Anyway, whatever. I don't know what it is, but anyway, it came in March 3rd and it said the review says it's 1 star review. Like, thanks.
Uh-huh.
And it said not lost, and that's the title. And
Mm.
then it says I listened to 10 plus Yellow Jackets podcasts
Oh wow.
and this one is by far the most Lost obsessed. You know what?
Yeah, well.
I'll buy it. I found Lost mid at best. So to hear hosts that cannot keep characters, storylines, or Easter eggs straight from the show they're supposed to be covering, but continuously compare it to a show that ended 15 years ago is just weird. Listen at your own peril or try one that
Carol.
actually enjoys the show. All right.
Wow.
So so
Wow.
uh
Carol.
I
My
just
goodness, such an extreme word. It's not we're not sending you on a voyage across the Atlantic, and it's not when I think peril, I think the old timey, you might get tuberculosis and die.
I just want to say 3 things. First of all, the lost stuff is coming from me. I think we all know that. That's my fault. That's all on me. They
Yeah,
like they didn't like acknowledge that it was just me who's and you're
yeah.
actually usually annoyed when I bring up lost. So
Uh-huh.
like it's
I did
totally on
notice the
me.
use of the plural there.
I did too.
Um,
And I just want to go ahead and say that's me. That bad review is because of me.
oh, I don't care.
I know you don't, but I'm just saying it
Yeah.
publicly so
Mhm.
that everyone knows that I know that that's my fault. Which I don't really consider a fault, but in the eyes of the reviewer, it was a fault. The other thing I want to say is that the podcasting project. I mean, I started podcasting with Claude doing the Law Slowdown in 2006, and that was starting in season 2, and we covered the show that whole time, and then we did a commentary series on the whole series, and that took several more years. We wrapped that up in 2021. And so, Lost to me, it's not like the first serialized mystery show ever. There was definitely precursors like Twin Peaks and X-Files and so on. But I think it was the one that sort of forged my point of view about it. So I feel like all of mystery TV since Lost like has, at least in my head, like some connection to Lost, whether it's like literal because it's David Lindelof or it's just people who clearly watched it, which I'm 100% convinced that the Yellow Jackets people. I mean, maybe not all of them, but I know some of them saw Lost for sure. And it just feels very explicit to me. And I just think like it's interesting to me to compare them the way they handle certain things. And yeah, if you don't like it, I'm trying not to do it too much. I don't feel like we really spend more than like 5% of the, if that, like of the podcast actually talking about Lost. And I don't intend to do more than that. I think we are talking Yellow Jackets most of the time. So anyway, I'm planning to still do it. If you don't like it, that's okay. But it's not going to be like turn it into a Lost podcast or anything. And the other thing I wanted to say is that we do enjoy the show.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
get that.
definitely wouldn't waste my Saturday afternoon recording this podcast if we didn't enjoy the show.
Like, let me
Um,
tell you, we used to get reviews of Lost Lowdown saying we didn't enjoy Lost, and now you're here saying
yeah,
it's Lost we like, but
yeah.
not. And it's like, no, no, no. We criticize. The only reason we care to criticize the show is because we like the show. I don't give a shit about a show being bad that I don't like.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I like the show 100%. Like, that's why I'm here. I trust me, I wouldn't waste my time if I didn't like the show. Just to be clear on that.
Yeah.
And I think I do point out things I like about the show routinely. So anyway,
Yeah. I
um
mean, I guess what I would say to that is if you have feedback about me, just know that there's no way you could be more critical of me than my inner critic is of me. Two, I don't read the reviews. I don't listen to podcasts, which is probably obvious to you. Uh, three, I want everybody to live happily, and
oh
so
God.
if you don't enjoy the podcast, I really encourage you to go elsewhere. And lastly, just in terms of the core question of how do you like to receive feedback, I like to receive it either as someone is handing me an ice cream or in a darkened alley with brass knuckles, depending on the feedback. So yeah. Anyway,
Yikes,
so
come at me.
come at me.
Anyway, I would pass it on because I would see it. But yeah, I think
Would you really?
yeah.
Even though I don't want to hear it.
Oh well, I would ask it like if you don't want to hear it, then I won't tell you. But
Yeah, but
I would
if
at least
me
let you
telling you, I don't want to know.
I would at least let
Really
you
want
know
to
that it
know.
exists.
Um,
But yeah, it's all good. It's all good. JP Jipatag. I don't know. Anyway,
I mean, they're probably not listening
I
to
wish you
this. I hope
well.
they're not listening to this. It's like I don't like this thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I hope you're not.
But maybe they hate listen. People do that.
Oh, I don't think that's healthy.
I don't think it's healthy
It,
either. It
I
doesn't mean
think
people don't do it.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think that's healthy. What speaking of, what episode are we
Oh, should we
talking
talk
about
about Showtime's
today?
Yellow Jackets,
Yeah,
or should we talk
it's
about ABC's Lost?
oh my
Anyway,
God.
all right.
It's that time of year, y'all. It's time for Thanksgiving, parentheses,
Yeah,
Canada.
so that's season 3, episode 6. That's what we're here to talk about today. A very, I,
So
you know,
we already know, like, okay, so it's October. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's why they did it that way,
Yeah,
just to
we
indicate the
see that,
time
like
period.
that montage of like
Yeah,
bringing food, and we talked in an earlier episode or an earlier podcast about like how are we gonna fast forward from spring to the winter
yeah.
because yeah, um, and here we've done it. We just skipped right over that summer. I guess it was an uneventful.
I thought we were in summer, but
Well, I think in the I mean, certainly the beginning of the episode or the beginning of the season was spring. They did like a spring
that's
celebration.
true. Yeah,
So,
that's true.
I'm sure that
Or was that summer solstice,
I'm
like
sure
the end
that
of spring?
J, 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 whatever no, that was the beginning of spring.
Okay.
Wasn't it?
I thought it was the beginning of summer, but anyway,
What's his name?
whatever.
What's their name?
They're
It wasn't
clearly in
him.
winter now.
Definitely. Who gave us the negative review? That person knows exactly what
How dare you
what
not know,
day
you
it
ignorant
is.
bastards?
Anyhow, I derailed your orientation to the episode. What did you
Actually, that does make me think that I want to bring up another thing, which is like this is something I learned from Lost, but I think it applies more generally. Like my general attitude about details is like I don't really care about them unless they matter in some way. So yeah, like if you're looking for like what's on the shelf in the background of a scene or
Yeah, I mean, I think
whatever.
the question of what matters is really relative to people's appreciation. So I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. If you're into all of those details, that's fine.
So yeah, just to clarify, by matters, I mean has some like direct relevance for the narrative or for the
Uh-huh.
characters. Like that's to me what matters.
Yeah.
If what matters to you is like what Sammy drew in season one, this ain't your podcast.
Yeah, I do think now that you say it, I do think that they said it was a solstice celebration, not an equinox celebration, and that would put it in the summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what
Anyway,
I thought, but what I don't really care. That's a good example. Like, because to me, like the point is, like, they're here now. They went through that period, and
yeah,
like, however it's divided up, like whatever,
yeah.
you know. And you'll see it by the way I summarize things, like what I think is relevant and what I think isn't. So
But I think it sort of gets to the point, and this is an interesting exception of like, we we know that the pit girl scene was in the
yeah,
winter,
yeah, snow and
and
stuff. Yeah,
we've seen that they are able to secure food. Like they can't just be eating people all the time, but also when there's like game and
yeah,
berries and mushrooms around, it would be
weird.
weird
It would
to
be weird to
choose
do that,
to
wouldn't
instead eat people.
it?
And yet they're not going to say no. So I have some things to say about that, but I'll hold them.
Okay. So I'll just say generically, like this was a pretty eventful episode.
Definitely.
We picked up on the visit to Lottie's like parents dad's like penthouse did yield something of value, actually multiple things of value that they follow up on in this episode. So that's one thing. As far as check-ins go, we finally found out what's on the tape, and it's clear why they held it back because
Yeah.
although I think it would have been interesting to play it earlier and we have no idea what it is until we find out later, I think that could have worked. But anyway, um I still sort of get why they held that back. I'm still waiting on the phone call to the bar and who picked up the phone and like what Shauna thinks about that. I think that's like hanging in the air over all this and maybe playing a role in the assumptions that Shauna's making about things that like seem totally wrong to me.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. But yeah, and we get a real shocker of an ending. Like this is probably the most shocking ending of the season.
Yes.
I would say it's like what? What? Like who saw that coming? Like I didn't for sure.
Definitely didn't.
So I yeah, I just want to give him some credit for that because like in a way it should be, and in a way it is like a mid-season like A to B kind of transitional episode, but it actually
It
steps
was
us
really
forward
eventful.
significantly in several plot
Yeah.
lines. I almost want to say all the plot lines move in this episode. It feels that way to me at least.
Yeah, it was a really
Um,
eventful episode. Last week's was kind of that
yeah,
mid-season,
more inert.
yeah, functional lull.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah,
definitely. All right, well, you ready to dive in?
let's do it.
Okay, so I just got one. This isn't a complaint, but this is about previously on.
Oh,
So I just want to say this because of what happens in the episode. It like helped me to reframe something that I had a misunderstanding about from a previous episode. So in the previously on, they show Misty taking the stuff from under Lottie's fingernails when she goes, to the
yeah.
corner. Which I thought was like paint or wall grime or something,
Yeah, I thought it was the paint that we see in that other shot
where
that's
they show the
scraped on the
hand.
wall. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then through the events of this episode, it becomes clear that it isn't. It's got DNA in it. So it's some kind of
Yeah.
biological material. Unless it's like
Yeah.
rat feces from the wall. I don't know.
Yeah. Can you make heads or tails of this? Yes, this is from rat feces. Immediate response. Walter immediately recognizes the DNA profile of rat
That's what we
feces.
get next week.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm not prepared to accept your interpretation of that. unless like they're trying to do a twofer with that, where because they cut to that and they show, I just
Yeah,
think it's maybe it's both. Like she got some
maybe it's
DNA off
both.
of it, and we're supposed to understand that as paint. Um, because I definitely think that that was what they were communicating to us in the
I mean,
preview.
that's what it felt like. Okay, but my point is, even if it's both,
We've also got some DNA here.
I thought it was only the one thing.
Got it. Right.
So like it's clearly not just that.
Yeah, but we did say like we did predict that that she was going to have some other networks of citizen detectives that she was going to like keep tapping to help fill in some of these gaps, since she is
Yeah.
not a forensic scientist or a detective in any way.
Hey.
Sorry,
Hey.
sorry, I redact. She is a detective.
Exactly. Come on. Yeah. All right. Well, with that said, you ready to
Yeah,
get
let's
going
do
here?
it.
All right. So we start off in the present. Shauna arrives back at home late at night after being in New York. She hears Jackie's voice saying, "Someone's trying to hurt you, Shauna," and she
It's a memory thing.
well, I know, but I mean, she's thinking about
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, we hear it and it's like she's thinking about it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, you're right. She doesn't hear it like in the moment.
Yeah, it's just you kind of should specify.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. That's a very
I'm
Claude
gonna
thing
go
to
write a
point out.
review.
He would totally say, like, no, 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 you're wrong. You're right. You're right. Anyway, um, okay, and she also thinks about Misty saying Lottie's dead. It's like she's connecting the dots there,
Yeah.
if there are dots to connect.
Well, she's connecting dots. I mean, whether it's a valid connection or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, yeah.
You shouldn't have said it that way either. God damn it. Now I feel
No,
like I'm a
I'm
fraud
not. No,
again.
no,
Anyway,
I'm not saying that. No, no, I'm just saying
they wouldn't let
like
me get away with anything. Anyway,
because
no, we all good.
no, that's just like a big question is, is she interpreting these things correctly? I mean, I think the viewer is invited to go either way.
Yeah,
Because we can choose to be Shauna in this and like continuing to reject the interpretation of the car guy, once again, the mechanic,
yeah. The cargo.
the car guy,
You're like me with the knife holder.
knife
What do you
holder.
call a knife
What do you call
holder?
a knife holder?
Yeah. And as she walks in, we hear Queen of Hearts play on the soundtrack. I think again she's remembering the phone.
The phone.
I think
Yeah,
that's
the
what that's telling
phone. Oh
us.
God, the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Just like your thing about the car brakes is my thing with the phone. I'm like, I'm just not convinced. But anyway,
I'm definitely more convinced that the
I
phone,
know.
not that the phone is connected with Lottie's death or even a threat, but
Uh-huh.
I am convinced that the phone has something to do with this tape and
Yeah.
this stalker situation. Like that feels like it's on firmer ground than the
Yeah.
brakes to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, sure.
Not that I know it's true for the record. It absolutely what you're saying, it doesn't have to be that. I'm
Hmm.
just like much more convinced by that. Okay. So a light turns on. It's Jeff. He was waiting up, worried. It's 2 a.m. Shauna is explaining vaguely what happened and then realizes he doesn't know that Lottie is dead. He's surprised to find out. She's skeptical that it was an accident. She says, disgraced cult leaders don't just fall down the stairs and die. Callie enters and overhears that Shauna thinks that Lottie was murdered, and she rushes to her room to find the tape.
Yeah.
And we finally pick
At
up with that.
last.
Shauna and Jeff follow. Callie says it was left there with Shauna's name on it. Does not say a word about the
Yeah,
symbol
yeah,
being
yeah.
on the
Deleted
envelope.
scene. Deleted scene.
Yeah. All right. I just have to say that. But she thinks maybe this has to do with Lottie. Shauna tells them both to pack a bag. She says, the brakes, the freezer. Now this? She thinks someone is trying to kill, quote, us. And we go to
Yeah.
credits on that.
Yeah, she goes really quickly from disgraced cult leader, which, fits with, I'm sure that people I mean, it's as you're thinking like what might have happened to Lottie, the idea that um Lisa or someone else could have pushed her down this someone else from the cult could have pushed her down the stairs, and then of course we do see Lisa later. But then
Yep.
she as soon as this tape shows up on the because of course like that doesn't really fit with her paranoia about the breaks and the phone um and the freezer, which I guess she didn't mention the phone. But anyway.
So like my thing about this is like, does she when she says us, does she mean herself, Jeff, and Callie, or does she mean us, the Yellow Jackets? Like, I'm
Yeah.
not really clear on that
Yeah, I
because
mean yeah, I think she means the Yellow Jackets.
okay, because she goes the breaks, the freezer, now this, and I'm like, none of this has anything to do with Callie or Jeff or Lottie, for what
Yeah,
it's
but
worth. It's all directed to Shauna. I feel like the obvious thing is someone trying to kill me. You know, like that
yeah,
makes more
but I mean, that
sense.
doesn't have anything to do with Lottie. I mean, it's like so
Yeah.
Lottie's dead, and there's all these different things. So I mean, the us means Yellow Jackets, but she doesn't want to leave her family in this house if somebody's coming to kill
Okay.
her
Yeah, yeah, because
because that's
they
dangerous.
could be a
And
risk collaterally,
yeah,
not necessarily like.
yeah, that's what I've learned from Hollywood.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good to me. Okay, now my other issue with this is why is it so fucking late? We saw, and there's something fishy here. I'm gonna talk about it with Walter too, and the shit he says to Misty on the text later, because like that didn't add up for me either. But we saw Shauna like have that little scene with Lottie's dad. It was still clearly daylight out when that happened.
Yeah,
And she had already left Walter behind, right? He had the hair, like that whole thing was over. Why didn't she go? Why is she getting
why
home
does
at
it
2
wait?
a.m.?
Yeah.
Like that's weird to me. I'm like, what the fuck is going on, Shauna? I feel like she's hiding something.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's interesting. I had not thought about that. So it's either she's hiding something and we're gonna have to find out what it is, or it was just for the drama.
It's just a continuity
Yeah, it's
error.
just
It
like
doesn't
it's
really
just yeah.
matter.
It's just more dramatic because if she just shows up at like 4 in the
Yeah,
afternoon, then
it's not gonna be a
it's
big
not
deal.
dramatic.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey, you're home.
Yeah.
How's your day? Like, yeah, it creates more urgency that
Tension. Yeah.
Jeff is waiting up worried and stuff.
Yeah.
It really could just be that, but I was just like, I was struck by
Yeah,
this
there
because
could
it
be something to
there
it.
was no indication that it took into the night to deal with the Lottie thing with Walter. And so I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing that whole time? Like her time is unaccounted for on screen. So anyway,
Yeah.
it may or may not matter, but like normally when it's just a matter of seeing the light on screen, like, oh, it's night now, oh, it's day now, I don't make too much of that because that can have to do with drama or shooting schedules. It's really that Jeff specifies that it's 2
But
a.m.
it's the city that never sleeps, so you just lose track of time.
It's wild, Van. Oh man, you have no idea how long it takes to go meet with Lottie and shit. Anyway, that's totally what she was covering up. I didn't even think about that till just now. Anyway,
Yeah, of course that's what she was covering up.
uh,
We already had the theory that she was
no,
covering
no, no.
up.
I know, but like, I just mean specifically in that scene where Van confronts her.
Uh-huh.
I didn't sort of think about until just now. Like, there's a specific thing that she's hiding. Anyway, um,
Yeah.
I know it's obvious for the record.
I mean, we right.
I don't think about obvious things all the time. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah, fact.
all right. Any further comments about this? We'll come back
No,
to it.
let's do
Obviously,
it.
this is basically setting up the entire Shauna side of the plot for the episode.
Right.
Okay, so we go to credits. Then we come back. We're in the past. Ben wakes up. Natalie brings breakfast and looks at his Achilles wound. She tells him to eat. He wonders why he's still there, and he's not pleased with being, quote, spared. He asks Nat to kill him. Nat says it will take away their hope of going home. She tries to encourage him. Then we get a montage of Ben asking Nat to kill him and Nat telling him to eat. At the end of this montage, Nat comes in and it smells bad. Ben asks again. Nat tells him to eat again. Then Ben says that he burned the cabin. Nat asks for details, clearly skeptical. Finally, Ben breaks down and again begs for death. Nat leaves and bumps into Gin, saying she's done bring Ben breakfast to the chore list. Ty and Van are doing something. Van mentions that winter's coming, and Ty says we're prepared. They see Melissa and Shauna come out of a tent, and Van wonders if Mel has to wear Jackie's clothes when they make out. And they have a laugh about it, as Ty says she definitely makes Mel call her shipman. Melissa waves to them, and they wave back awkwardly. Ty says that Shauna seems better, so why not?
Yeah.
So, let's see. What do I want to say about this? I guess two things. So the first thing is, I don't believe Ben. I feel like he's
Yeah,
just
no.
saying it to try to
It
provoke.
it really makes me feel even more strongly that he did not burn the cabin.
Yeah, I believed him for half a second, and then Natalie tries to poke holes in his story, and he didn't really have good answers, and it really seemed like, yeah, he's just making this up.
Yeah, they shot it like, or he acted it like they do, like actors do when they're supposed to look like bad
Yeah,
liars.
exactly. Yep,
And
yep.
so it's just yeah. I mean, I would we've discussed, did he, didn't he,
Yeah.
as the whole fandom does. And yeah, this just makes me think he didn't.
Me too.
Um
Me too. I don't know if we'll ever find out who did, but I don't think he's guilty. And of course, he's gonna die in this episode. So
what?
this will be his last chance to confess. And the way he
Yeah.
confesses definitely makes me think he didn't do it. So we'll see where that goes going forward. Um, the other thing is this is a thing in the fandom talking about the sort of latent tension between Shauna and Jackie that like I never really saw, but I don't know. There's people who think that, and they definitely are like acting like that's a thing here.
Like romantic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, sexual tension is what I mean.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's sort of semi-canonical now, or at least it's canonical that Van used to think this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the I think one is invited to read that when somebody sleeps with their best friend's boyfriend, that there's like something about
Transference thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
transference.
yeah. Almost like a challengers kind of situation.
Um
Just to bring up another
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Because I felt like that's kind of what was going on in that, in multiple ways, actually.
It definitely in that.
Yeah, that was very
Um
direct about it, but it's like you could, if you want, you could read it that way. But
yeah.
I feel like it's like, but Shauna's with Jeff now. Like, I don't know. Anyway, it's
Yeah,
like,
and it's going so well. Yeah, I think it's yeah, I think it's there. And but I think best friendships often invite that. There is, I feel like in best friendships, there is frequently this sort of like sexual tension because like close human relationships invite that kind of
mhm.
muddying.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. You ready to continue?
Let's do it.
So back to the present. Misty is talking to some sort of lab tech named Carl with a K, asking him for a favor, but he's worried about being caught. Misty says it's an emergency and does some manipulation, getting him to agree. She hands him a vial. Carl asks what it is. She says it's some biological material collected from under the fingernails of a dead woman. Carl asks, "What is this about?" as Misty quickly walks away. Outside, Walter texts to ask Misty where Shauna is, saying, "What did you say to her? She won't respond to my texts." Misty blows him off. And that's the end. Yeah, this is the shit I wanted to talk
Yeah, yeah,
about because
yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about, Walter? You know why she stormed off. You tried to grab her hair and she like stormed off. Like you, what are you asking Misty about this? Like, I,
Yeah.
that really threw me
Yeah.
because I was like, bullshit. Like, I don't know. Like, did he do something else with Shauna, or did he follow Shauna, or I don't know. I'm just like, why is he like being like sort of covering up that he knows what happened? Like, acting
Yeah,
like,
his motives in general are so confusing. And it was, last season I was confused by his motives, and you know, the thing with taking the hair, uh, is it a bluff? Because he like if he did it, I don't know. He's so fishy.
Yeah, he's definitely fishy.
And this potentially connects in with your question from earlier of what was Shauna doing between the
Yeah,
afternoon and 2 a.m.
that's what I was trying to
But
do.
if Shauna did it, and it's like it just we're still in that situation of like any of them could have done it.
Yeah.
And we know Walter has this animosity toward the Yellow Jackets because of the way that they treat Misty. But we also know that he is really willing to use whatever is at his disposal to try to endear himself to Misty.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Is this just if he just like he knows exactly why she stormed off
Maybe
the
he's just saying that to try to have something to say and
Yeah.
engage Misty
Yeah.
somehow. He's not like
Yeah.
specifically trying to cover up anything.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It absolutely could be that. It just like stood out to me because like I'm like
But
that
is it
isn't.
if Shauna went to Lottie's that day,
Hmm.
even if she didn't push her, is she now like freaking out? Okay, so now we have this serious Walter has this like serious interest and has all people on the table as suspects, pacing the city, I don't know, going through her mind trying to think of like any material evidence that could have been left at the scene anyway that I don't know. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
I do. I do. Yeah, yeah, it definitely feels like they're trying to make us think, well, yeah, they're trying to keep us in the dark
Yeah.
and give like multiple interpretations. I have some pretty more specific thoughts about Lottie that will come up in a later scene, but anyway, I just wanted to mention that. All right, you ready for the next bit
Yeah.
here? This is a long one, so buckle up.
Okay.
Shauna, Jeff, and Callie arrive at the new fancy Jolly Hitcher that the Joels made. Good
Oh,
job, y'all.
right.
Good job, y'all. Yeah, I know. So this, hey, CJ Patag, I can notice details. Anyway, whatever. Um, Jeff tells Callie to go to her room, in a nice way, not like as a punishment.
Room.
She's just like, you should go check out your room. I bet you're tired. Like that's all he says. It's not like go to your room, young lady. Anyway, but she wants to know more about being, quote, marked for death. Okay, so this is where I start to wonder: did she just misread what Shauna meant, or did she actually mean Callie and Jeff as well? Anyway, whatever. But she goes anyway. Jeff asks how bad it is. Is it stuff from the journals? Shauna says she doesn't know what's on the tape or how to play it. Jeff wants the truth, but Shauna says that is the truth. Jeff says it can't be good and, quote, it's almost definitely connected to something from back then, outlining the threat. Shauna says she won't let anyone hurt them, but she needs Jeff's trust. And he says, likewise. Shauna, Shauna then immediately pretends to be dizzy.
Yeah. Immediately violates his trust.
No, it's like,
Poor,
oh,
sweet, naive Jeff.
I know, I know. It's like, God. I actually bought this the first time. I'm like, oh, that's weird. She's like, dizzy? Okay. Anyway, Jeff offers to go get a snack and leaves. Shauna immediately gets up and calls Ty, who's at a hotel room getting a massage with Van, having some nice, like, getaway time, picking up from
At
the
like three
previous.
in the morning.
At this point, it's light outside, so
Oh, okay. It's morning now.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Just
I
to
don't notice details.
it's yeah. I mean, like I don't know why it took so long, but anyway,
Yeah.
that's what I saw outside. This I wouldn't make a deal about, but anyway, it's a fair point.
Yeah.
Okay, like if they talked about like
Yeah, yeah,
anyway,
yeah, yeah,
whatever. Um, okay, getting massage right. Getting a massage with Van, who Shauna actually whom Shauna actually wants to talk to whom Shauna actually wants to talk.
yeah.
There we go.
Here we go.
She hands the phone to Van. Shauna asks Van if she can play a DAT tape, which is a digital audio tape, for the record. She can. Vanna,
Vanna.
I really want to call her Vanna. Anyway, Van says She can bring the player later this week, but Shauna says it's an emergency. Van explains the situation to Ty, who blows off the idea, saying, "The curse continues," sarcastically, mentioning the breaks in the freezer. The room service guy arrives and describes the large amount of fancy food to Van, who's perplexed, throwing out the guy and the masseuse as Ty tries to order more food.
Oh my God. Yeah.
She's like, "Yeah, I want some more." It's like, God
Yeah, so
damn.
we get a little wink there when Van says, "Did I accidentally knock you up?"
Yeah.
And this, I think it's a wink because I think, as I have thought all season, I'm finally vindicated that we have not been watching Ty. We've been watching the bad one. And I think the wink is like, oh, you're eating for two because you're the bad one. And Thais is buried in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm patting myself on the back.
For the record, you're 100% right. You
Thank
deserve
you.
to pat yourself on the back. And
Oh,
I'll just say, like, all the podcasts are saying this, and I'm just sitting there
yeah, yeah.
shaking my head, going, like, nah, y'all are all wrong. I don't buy it.
Mhm.
But that Sammy scene, that is absolutely what that meant.
Yep.
And I just want to go ahead and admit, hey, you know what? I'm wrong. And honestly, I'm happy to be wrong because I like this better than what I thought. So it's good. I even said that last week. Like, I hope it's that.
Yeah.
I just didn't really believe it. Now I believe it. All right.
Well,
It's fucking
you
obvious.
are very prone to not want to because you've been burned so many
I've been
times
burnt.
by a mid show that I shall not name that
From
you know
15
like
years
you
ago.
don't want to believe it.
Yep.
It's like you don't want to set yourself up for disappointment.
Yep. 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 You burnt.
You burnt. Wait, what is that?
All
I
right.
don't think that applies.
You know, I just wanted to say it because it makes me laugh. Anyway, Van asks Ty what's going on, explaining the situation and how Ty doesn't seem to care. Ty says she lost everything and Van has cancer and she just wants to feel good, to feel something. Van says she sort of gets it, but Sean is scared. Ty blows off the idea of the DAT tape, saying, "Who even uses that?" Van says garage bands and super intense birders suddenly getting an idea, looking at Ty and saying to get dressed. So I
Ooh, I'm
think
getting chills.
yeah. So I think that is a clue
Yeah.
about who those people are at the end.
Yeah.
Because I think we're
Like they're
invited
like
to
wilderness
something.
adventurers, like
Yeah.
backpackers or whatever.
I
I
think
don't know.
we're invited
Or they're
to believe that the
ethnographers.
tape came from them, even if they're not the ones who left it. That they're the ones who recorded it
Yeah.
because we hear all that whooping at the end, and it seems to match up with what we hear on the tape.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
Watching this episode, I was like, oh man, this is the perfect kind of episode of a show. It's just like full of tidbits you're trying to grab onto, and you're like,
yeah,
oh shit, what does this mean about blah? And I'm not a person, maybe there are people like this, maybe nobody serious does this, but like you're not gonna pause it when you're watching it the first time and be
yeah,
like, ooh, what might this mean? You
yeah,
just like roll with it and you just go on the journey. But like in real time, trying to figure out like, oh, what just occurred to her? What is she thinking? Because you see it and you're like, the look on her face, you
yeah,
know that this is the breakthrough, but you don't know what it means yet. I
yeah.
love that.
It's clear to me that she knows what the tape is at this point.
Yeah.
And where it came from.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that's obviously a thing. And like, so what happened to the tape, who got it in the end, and so on, is something left to be answered.
Yeah.
um and I can't let it go without complaining about Jeff saying it's almost definitely connected to something from back then,
Yeah.
because I'm like, from what Callie said, why would you think that, Jeff?
Yeah.
Where are you getting that from? The only reason I would think that is that symbol that Callie didn't mention.
This is
So
where I just have to say, like, off screen, Shauna says, "Okay, Callie, you have to tell me exactly every detail.
yeah.
Tell me about this envelope that you threw away."
Yeah. And I think
And
like there's a screenwriting rule of show don't tell, and if we've already seen it,
Yeah,
explaining it, having characters explain it to each other again is not good use of
that's
time.
not good TV. Yeah,
So I'll buy that they heard about that and that's why he thinks it. It just annoyed me that she didn't mention it.
yeah,
Like, because it would have taken like half a second to be
I
like, and there
know.
was this weird symbol on the envelope. Like, that's it. That's all she's got to say. And then I'm there. Because
Yeah,
Jeff knows what the fucking symbol is. He left it in the
yeah, yeah,
ransom
yeah,
thing,
yeah,
the blackmail, the B-mail. Anyway, all right. I just,
yeah.
it was notable to me. Okay. Not to mention Callie saying we're marked for death or whatever, or she's marked for death. And I'm like, okay, so like, what the fuck? Anyway, whatever. It's fine. We can move forward. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. So go back to the past. Travis goes up to Aquila, who is holding a bunny, and
Mhm.
asks about an off-screen trip with Lottie to the caves and if she saw anything new. Aquila says some vague Lottie-esque bullshit about the messages and the messenger changing. And Travis says he's worried about her, but she blows him off and walks away. And I'm like, you just, and they replayed it in the previously on too. You just said you're the only one I could trust, Travis.
Yeah, but she's just completely under Lottie's spell now.
Clearly,
And who knows
clearly.
what kind of long-term effects this gas exposure might be having on her
Hmm.
brain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And in this scene, isn't there a line that is something about, well, but you had, Aquila saying to Travis, but like you had the vision that it would be me, or is that later with
I
Lottie?
think she's sort of alluding to it about the messenger changing, but there is a later line where it's actually Natalie who mentions
Natalie. Okay.
Travis, or you didn't you say that blah blah blah, or
Yeah.
he was the messenger, you
Yeah,
know?
it's laying on a little thick here. Yeah, where I think he is acting on a sense of guilt,
Yeah,
exacerbated by that line of like, you're the only one I can trust.
yeah,
Of like, okay, well, it, she's doing this is happening because of what I said. So I have a moral
yeah.
responsibility to check in on this.
Yeah, like this whole thing is built on a lie from Travis,
Yeah.
and so he's like, "Oh boy, I really made something happen here."
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe like that explains why he went along. Like he feels responsible, and so he's like trying
Yeah.
to mitigate the damage unsuccessfully, but still like he's got good intentions, but
Yeah.
it's like, oh God.
But I mean, there may also be a part of him that is unsure what any of this mean. I mean, I would imagine there's a part of him that is unsure what any of this means, and maybe Aquila is seeing a legitimate vision that means something, and is not just a hallucination, like just
Yeah, yeah.
a reaction within the brain. I mean, this. Mm,
Well, he's got some dialogue about that later,
yeah, yeah,
so we can come back to that
yeah.
point. But this is just a little transitional scene picking stuff up that obviously will come into play later. Um, all right. Mari brings food to Ben, smelling the bad smell and waking him up. He apologizes, saying he is, quote, between cleaning ladies. Mari sees something and asks, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then we transition to Lottie, Aquila, Thaisa, Natalie, and Mari in a hut talking about Ben's hunger strike. There was rotten food stashed in there. Lottie says he can't die. He's our bridge home. Mari asks Aquila what else she's seen in the caves. Aquila says some unhelpful stuff from before. Ty says it's stuff from before, not the future, and she's trying to figure it out. But Lottie says maybe you shouldn't. Thanks, Lottie. Nat says the bridge thing is hope, and winter's coming, so they need that. So they need to convince him to eat, which won't be easy. And Lottie has an idea.
Ugh.
Oh, Lottie.
This is where the
Oh,
show gets
Lottie.
this is where that whole plot line gets really abject, and it's so difficult to
It's fucking
watch.
awful. It's,
I mean, it's actually already getting abject, like
yeah,
watching his decline,
begging for death over
begging
and
for
over
death.
again.
Yeah,
The Achilles thing.
yeah,
Yeah, it's awful. But yeah, this is actually the worst. And even like they're not all on board with it, but
yeah.
I'm like, this is Lottie's fucking idea. Like what Lottie Lottie.
It's yeah, she
I was sympathetic to Lottie in season 2, but man, she is not winning me over this season. She's not quite as hostile as Shauna, but like the fact that I would expect Shauna to have this idea, and the fact that it's Lottie doing, like, it's like, damn, this is
it's
awful.
yeah.
Ugh, I'm revolted by you, Lottie. All right, so we'll come back to that. Um, we go back to the present. Misty walks the mean streets of NYC, getting texts from Walter. A limo pulls up alongside her as a quote peace offering. The driver gets out and goes to the trunk, giving Misty 2 bags of Lottie's trash. Walter couldn't see anything in it, but maybe a master investigator will.
Yeah, so I feel like that's horse shit. I think that he's such a thorough investigator. Yeah, I don't know.
He's just trying to get.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's yeah.
And absolutely, I wouldn't. I don't discount that. I'm willing to buy it either way, but I think your way totally makes sense. Okay, we'll come back to that. Obviously, back to the past. Misty talks to Nat about regretting not noticing what was happening with Ben. Nat asks if maybe keeping Ben alive was a mistake. Misty insists that no, she kept him alive before. Nat says he's suffering, but Misty insists that this will help, saying, "Let me take it from here." Nat walks away, running into Travis. Oh my God, they have their
Yeah.
first dialogue in
Oh
the entire
shit, you're still
season. Yeah, no, what? I thought you were home already. Anyway, who asks if Ben is bad, and Nat says, yeah. Then Travis wonders if what Aquila saw was just bullshit, saying Lottie said stuff, but then something actually happened, like the bear or the birds. Nat says, weren't you the one that said she would have the visions? And he says, yeah, sheepishly, and tries to recover, but finally gives up and says, forget it. It doesn't matter anyway, and walks away. So that's the thing you were
that's what I was
referring
talking about.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's clear again, like to me, it's clear from this that like, I mean, maybe he has like a shred of doubt, but it seems to me like he's leaning on the side of like he doesn't really believe that it means anything. And he's just like regretting what he started, but feels like he's powerless to stop it at this point.
Yeah, well, it's like once you see the consequences of the sort of leap of faith or whatever, because okay, yeah, so he didn't when he said it initially about Aquila, he was just saying it to get himself out of this difficult situation. But then she actually has this vision, and it's like, okay, well, maybe there is something there. And but then now that something is leading to this torture of another human and this like whatever is happening with Aquila, however you might describe that, it's like, is it just it makes you question it. It's like we were taking a chance because we didn't know if this meant anything anyway, and now we see like what is at stake
Yeah,
in buying into it. The the balance is, the balance changes.
yeah. I think the arc for Natalie is going from, well, it's giving him hope, so I guess we just got to go along with it. Clearly not
Yeah,
believing it,
right.
as she usually doesn't buy into that kind of stuff. So that makes sense. But then, like, looking at what it really entails, going like, nah, it ain't worth it.
Yeah,
We can live without hope.
or we find hope somewhere
Yeah,
else.
exactly.
Yeah,
Without this version
yeah.
of hope, like it's not worth it. I think that's kind of the arc there. Another thing, I mean, I'll get plenty of chance to talk about this, but like Team Misty is not great in this episode.
Correct.
I felt really sorry for her earlier in the season, and I was like, man, Misty's been like pretty sympathetic, and like the way she reacts to this situation is like, ugh, yuck.
Yeah,
It's like awful. I'm like, damn. In a way, I feel like she's worse than Shauna in this episode. Which is like,
yeah.
Shauna actually takes a step in the other direction. And I feel like they kind of crossed. Because like Shauna's a little more reasonable and less hostile, and like the point Ty makes earlier that like this thing with Melissa is like made her kind of like relax a bit and not be hostile all the time. Like
True.
does seem true. And
Yeah, I think it's sort of a nod to the fact that she's going to become like that she's going to go on to work in a nursing home.
yeah,
Um and it's also I think a nod back to her keeping him from committing suicide and like being really emotionally manipulative
yeah,
about doing it. You know, it's one thing to try to convince someone that their life still has meaning, but the way that she approached that um had a really dark undertone
yeah.
to it.
It reminds me of Jessica Roberts too. Like
Yeah,
keeping her locked in the
yeah.
basement for all that time. You know, it feels like it has a similar sort of
Yeah, sort of ends justifying the
yeah,
means
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
exactly. But yeah, I was just it's
But it's like
weird.
she's telling herself like, I kept him alive once before, I'm gonna do it
Yeah,
again. Like I took care of him, I'm gonna take it. This is taking
yeah.
care of him. He doesn't know what he, you know, this implication that like he wants to die now, but it's just like robbing him of all agency.
Yeah, yeah. And I just after she was like the only one holding her ears when he was screaming at the end of the last episode,
Yeah.
I'm just like, and you're and there's actually
Yeah. The Go ahead. You're about to say exactly what I was about to say.
oh no, go ahead.
Well, no, no, go ahead, because I want to know if I'm right.
So there's a moment later in the episode where she's like breaking
Yeah.
down
And she like
with him and
slaps
then
and she
she
like
like
kicks herself out of
snaps
it. Yeah.
herself out of it. And I do feel like that's sort of showing the dichotomy there that she was leaning into the more
Yeah.
sympathetic side, but there's also this colder kind of get the job done whatever it
Exactly.
takes kind of version of her that can tolerate a lot of suffering
Yeah.
even if people she cares about supposedly.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
um,
yeah, like a partition. There's a different psychological word for this. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Um, yeah, I don't know what that is, but it's definitely
compartmentalization.
hey,
There it
boom, good
is.
job. I mean partition is pretty similar, but anyway, it is that. All right, ready to continue? All
Yep.
right, so we go back to the present. Van goes through her boxes in Ty's basement. I think that's where this is.
Yeah.
Like
The whole time when she was like, "Yeah, I have a DAT player," I was like, "Is it an Oberlin?" I missed that all of her stuff had been shipped to
yeah, I mean, I don't think
Texas.
they told us that before this scene, but I think this is what we're invited to assume.
Uh-huh.
That in the months or I think it's been a couple months since the end of last season, like she had her shit shipped to Ty's place, and it's down there in the basement. She finds the DAT player. She pulls out some batteries to put in when the lights flicker and an unplugged phone in the box starts to ring. She picks it up, and Ty's voice comes on the phone. The voice says, "Help," and the line clicks. Ty comes in asking, "Which color box cutter you want? We have so many options." God, creepy Ty is so
Creepy
weird.
Ty's very over the top.
It's like, look, you want the red one or the
Yeah, she's like got this like zany
yeah,
edge to
kind of
her
manic like
voice.
energy. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's creepy in a not
She's
one of
like
these.
deluxe about everything. It's
Yeah,
like, I want 5 cheeseburgers and 2 lobsters
yeah,
and your pick of the box
yeah,
cutters.
yeah, yeah. Van is stunned, but says that she got what she needed and walks out of the basement saying, "Let's go."
I totally had that phone, by the way.
Oh, really?
The see-through phone.
The
Mine
secret
was
phone.
pink tinted. It looks like hers was just clear,
Yeah, it was clear.
but where you can see all the mechanics inside. It was
Yeah,
so
yeah, those
cool.
are fun. I actually have a watch just like that. You could
Mm.
viewers, can you? I'll put it up to the mic.
Yeah, it's not
Here,
nearly a yeah, take a good listen.
check it out, y'all.
I wonder if actually the clicking
I
can
think it will because it's pretty loud, actually.
um
We'll see. Let us know if you
let
saw the
me
clip,
know.
especially you, JPTAG. Anyway,
Um
I hope you're still here.
the yeah, sorry, go ahead. Finish the scene.
This reminds me of Lost. Anyway, no, it doesn't. Go ahead.
This
That's the end of the scene.
scene, okay. So this is a wild scene
Definitely.
and total vindication. Thank you.
Total vindication. I've already said
And
it, but
I
it's
know.
true.
And then but it seems to okay. What do you want to say about the scene?
So I'm well. all y'all jacketers, sorry, we can't say that, right? What were we going with?
I don't remember.
Jockeyers? Jockeys?
Jockeys.
All right.
No.
We're all jockeys now.
Jocks.
Jocks.
Jocks. That's
That's
what we
weird
said.
too. Everything means too many things. All right. So all y'all jocks.
Jack and Jocks. I hate it. I hate it. It works though. If we were a different kind of person, we would go with Jacket Jocks
Okay.
for our
All
fandom.
y'all jocks know that I'm definitely very firmly in the skeptic camp of the supernatural stuff
Yeah.
in the show. I don't really buy it. I take this as Van's sort of subconscious trying to tell her that something's wrong with Thaisa. Like I think like to me, like she already seemed to be having some doubts about that in multiple scenes before this.
Uh-huh.
And so I feel like that's what this is a representation of. I don't believe the phone actually rang. I don't believe that stuff actually happened. I think that she is imagining that as a way of visualizing, the concerns. The scene with Ty later, I believe, did happen for what it's worth.
So I am not going to weigh in on whether I think the phone actually rang in some way, like if there had been somebody else there to hear it, because I think, we can talk about that again later when we're back in the wilderness with the animal calls.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
if an external observer had been there, would they have heard it?
Hmm.
Like, well, and we have external
Interesting you
observers, so we
mentioned
might
that.
get to hear that. But what so I'm not gonna weigh in on that. But what I will say is that I think it was actually Ty sending it, not Van's subconscious. And I think it's interesting because and don't ask me for any specifics, in previous seasons, we have seen the bad one have some kind of power where that like warps the visual experience for the viewer and seems to do things that maybe not supernatural quite, but don't seem normal either. But here we're actually seeing, I think we're seeing Ty like using some of the power of the bad one to break through the power of the bad one and send a message to Van. That's my belief.
Fair enough.
Don't ask me to explain it. Don't ask me for
No,
specifics.
no, no, I get what you mean. I feel like we're invited to believe that, and obviously the later scene is a more
Yeah.
believable version of that idea, which for the record I do believe. So I do think that idea is there. It's just like I just don't believe this phone that's unplugged really was ringing. This isn't from like I
I was
just
just gonna say it reminded me a lot of From.
yeah, me too. I thought the same thing. Speaking of lost related
Oh
shows,
my god.
anyway,
See, even when he's talking about a different
yep.
show, he's still talking
Hey,
about
I talked
Lost.
about Lost all the time on the
Oh my
Fromcast.
god.
Um,
This morning when you went out to get the paper, you were like, "This is just like that episode in Lost."
remember when Charlie got a paper? Anyway, yeah.
Every time you get out a Sharpie. Okay, go ahead.
But I do think the basic point is the same regardless of whether you believe
Yeah.
in the supernatural or not. So like
Yeah.
I'm okay with whatever. And I do think this is an overpromise, underdeliver kind of show. So I think we might be getting an overpromise here. I just don't expect like the bad one to manifest like making electricity
Yeah, yeah,
exist
yeah.
where it's not plugged in. Like I
My
just don't
favorite shows are Overpromise,
shooting
Underdeliver.
out like force lightning and shit. But I definitely think that's what we're invited to believe, and I definitely think the basic idea is correct. So whatever. I don't think there's a big disagreement here. Um, it's more about philosophy.
Irreconcilable differences.
The podcast ends here. I hope you're happy, Jay Patak.
You'll be hearing from my lawyer. I want my half.
You're half of our podcast empire.
Yes.
All right. Well, you ready for the next scene?
Yeah.
We're coming back to this, so
Yes, we
we
are.
can talk more about it.
Yes, we are.
Okay. So Misty digs through the trash in a back alley. I thought it was funny. That's what she decided to do. She didn't even take it to like a secluded location. She just goes to an alley and like rips the shit open on the street. It's like, okay, Misty. Anyway, um, finding a takeout container from Bamboo Cafe, she looks it up on her phone and she wonders why Lottie would eat at a low quality place with quote no vegetarian options. cut to her staking out the place, and she sees that Lisa is doing bicycle delivery for that place. So that, maybe explains why Lottie was going there, basically, I think is the point.
I think that's pretty clearly the point.
I don't think they ever established that Lottie's vegetarian. It's like not implausible, but like I don't
I
remember them
think
ever.
they definitely have established that one of the Yellowjackets is a vegetarian. Oh, Ty is a vegetarian.
They did say that.
Maybe they're just all vegetarians. Like if I can't eat human flesh, I'm not eating any animals. Like because human flesh is just so succulent and amazing that that's not actually what I mean. What
Oh my
I just
god,
thought it would be
I
funny
didn't
to.
expect that.
I just thought it would be funny to say that. No, what I really mean is like the suggestion that their experiences having to eat humans in the wild has made them perhaps. I mean, we know Shauna's not vegetarian. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
I was just gonna say they did show Shauna like killing a rabbit, and they absolutely ate that in season one.
Actually, Ty's just ordered all this meat.
Yeah, I think they forgot that they
she's
said that in
vegetarian.
season
Or
one.
or Ty is vegetarian, but the
The
bad,
bad
one
one isn't, which
and Van
actually,
doesn't know that Ty's vegetarian,
yeah,
and Simone's not around to call it out.
that's
Oh my
actually
god!
that's
There we go.
actually a good save for the retcon or the continuity error, basically. Like, because I suspect they forgot, but I think it actually works. So whatever, it's fine. But yeah, it was the thing at the
It was
party
another
when
clue.
she ate a thing with bacon in it, and
I bet JP Morgan, the critic, caught on to that earlier on in the season, and we didn't.
good point, good point. Yeah, yeah, we're always coming up short of JP Morgan.
I'm not interested in remembering their name. No, I mean probably like 2/3 of the people listening to this caught on earlier that when they go to that fancy restaurant, she ordered meat, but she's supposed to be vegetarian. I don't think you sound like that unless you're a crow, which you might
Actually,
be.
what? I hope we have a lot of crow listeners. I just want
Crows are way too intelligent to listen to us.
sick burn.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I meant to say this earlier, but I forgot. I'm a bad podcaster. I just want to invite anyone, and if you want to complain, go for it. But rate, review, and subscribe, y'all. Like, drop us a review. There's only 5 right now, and so JPTags is a little overrepresented versus our listenership.
But what if they all agree?
They might all agree. No. But if we get more, then it's not.
How many reviews would you have to get before you stopped talking about Lost? That's a trick question because it would be impossible.
I'll tell you what, y'all. I'll tell you what. Here's my deal with you. If I get 10 more reviews, so total of 11, mentioning that you don't want me to talk about Lost, I will stop talking about Lost. How about that?
But they all have to be 5 stars.
No, they don't. They don't. I won't stipulate that.
I will never know.
I won't stipulate that. They can be whatever. But if 10 of you say that, I'll take your thing and I won't mention Lost again. I promise, except in passing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, that's gonna be toughy.
I can't help it. It comes out.
I look forward to trying to enforce that with you.
It's like vomit. You can't stop it.
See it coming though, so I could like throw you a vomit bag.
Much like vomit. Yeah, good point.
Okay, so back to the scene.
All right, sorry.
This is a functional.
Oh,
go ahead.
Sorry, there's one more thing I wanted to say, which is there was a scene in season 2 where Lisa kills a chicken in front of Natalie. And so I think that implies that it's not a vegetarian like camp. So anyway, like maybe Lottie is a vegetarian, but like to me the context didn't suggest that. So I just thought it was
really funny. Like she's just reading a review. Like I think it's funny to imagine Lottie's not even a vegetarian. She's just honing in on the criticisms of the restaurant.
Yeah.
Listed on the Google review.
Yeah.
I just think that's funny.
I think maybe that is the point, that it's just like, why would Lottie go? Like any place that Lottie would go to would be fancy enough to have vegetarian options. Like maybe that's the point. And it's not even about so whatever. Anyway, it's a very small point, but that's what I'm here for. Anyway.
I love how earlier you were like, I don't pay attention to details that don't matter.
I feel this matters. It's at least relevant to the characters, all right?
But everybody thinks that the things that they think matter. That's definitional.
Yeah, but I explained what I meant by matters, and I'm explaining why this fits my definition. That's all I'm saying. Okay, but we can move on. We'll come back to that. Shauna, did you want to say something else?
No,
Okay. Shauna, Jeff, and Callie are watching Repo Divorces.
I love it.
With the latter two enjoying it the most. They're fucking loving it.
Yeah.
Jeff especially, who seems like he's never seen it before, and he's utterly delighted.
This is the life that I want. Like, Jeff is a dad from a sitcom who found himself the dad on a show about
yeah,
cannibalism.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're totally right. You're totally right. He could fit in on like a totally different show and be like much more in his elements.
Hmm.
Okay. Shauna smiles at Jeff, getting a call from Ty. She says, thank you, gets off the phone and gets up to leave. They're probably just calling to say they're there. Callie wonders where she's going. Shauna admits that it was Van and she's going to find out what's on the tape. Jeff says he'll join, but Shauna wants him to stay with Callie. Callie says this is bullshit and she's a part of this. Shauna says they need to protect her, and Jeff says they're trying to do better at that. Callie hugs Shauna and slips her phone in Shauna's purse,
I love it.
and Shauna leaves.
I love it. The apple does not fall far from the tree.
The trust level here is really off the charts. All right. So we will continue that, obviously. Did you want to say or anything about this scene?
It kind of reminded me of that scene from the first season when it's like the morning after the Halloween party encounter,
Oh yeah.
and Shauna's been trying to convince Jeff that Callie's, an ass or overly rebellious or whatever. And so she's sort of like tricked Callie into confessing to Jeff, and Jeff is like, wow, I am so surprised. You're gonna have to blah blah. Like, I want to see Jeff's response to Shauna. I mean, this won't happen because of the way that things unfold later. Of Shauna being like, "Your daughter pretended to be hugging me and instead surveilled me with her son." Oh God, Shauna, Callie, how could you do that to your mother? Using your phone to surveil a private conversation. Honestly, you know what? You're grounded.
Go to your room again. Yeah, no, you're right. That's very very fitting. All right, you ready to
Yeah.
continue? All right, so we go to the past. Misty goes to Ben saying she's there as a friend to ask him to eat. He says, go away. She says, okay, you've left me with no choice.
Ugh.
And she puts a cover on her face as others come in with masks on, and they hold him down and force feed him. Travis is definitely there. We see it's clearly Travis. The others are more obscured. Aquila looks on from afar. She's not doing it. Clutching a bunny, concerned. And Nat says, I hope you're fucking sure about this. And she walks away, Aquila, that is. The force feeders emerge. Travis says, that was fucked. Van says nothing. Misty asks Shauna if he kept it all down, and Shauna says, we'll get better at it. Shauna looks at Natalie and walks away along with the others. Natalie goes in to see Ben, who is spitting blood. Natalie apologizes. Ben begs her to let him die, and she says we can't, and he laughs at that, and she walks away. So this is definitely like
Ugh.
the hardest scene to watch in the
Yeah,
episode
for
because
sure.
it's just like God, Ben, especially if I mean, even if he did burn the cabin, I'm not sure if this is really justified, like torture, but like given that I don't think he did burn the cabin, it's really just like awful. Like it's just like God, how much are you gonna put him through? Like in a way, it is relief that he finally gets to die in this episode. Like even though he has to go through this, like
Yeah.
at least his suffering is coming to an end soon.
It's really horrible. It's so hard to watch.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and we get the masks.
yeah.
So masking as creating this kind of distance
Yes,
between who you are and what you're doing, which, Pit Girl,
I think it
blah blah blah.
confirms that because this isn't um this isn't like a ritual or like an eating thing, you know what I mean? It's not part of that. So it's like the fact that they do it does suggest that, yeah, that's definitely a part of why they wear the mask. Like it's a way to like keep themselves removed from what they're doing. It helps them to like get through it and like make their peace with it in a way. It's just kind of feel like they're one step removed. It's like that Blair Witch Project thing of like the videos like filtered reality or something. It's a way to like
Yeah.
keep away from what they're actually doing.
And it also I mean there is this connection to the wilderness of, they believe that the reason they have to keep him alive has to do with a vision that they think is coming from the wilderness.
Yeah.
So there is that, but it's really you know, multi-step
Yeah. It
to
feels
get
like it's
there.
more the other thing than the ritual
Yeah,
thing
no,
here.
I agree. I just want to acknowledge that
Yeah, it's
there is
relevant.
that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Okay. Are you ready to continue?
Let's.
Okay, so Lottie sits by a tree with a candle, asking it to talk to her and listen to her and answer her please. Then she hears a footstep. It's Aquila. She wants to see if there's anything she missed, and Lottie nods. I actually like this because it's a little um glimpse of the doubtful Lottie.
Yeah, and sort of doubtful Aquila, or at least
Yeah,
like they're okay, so we just did this extreme thing.
yeah,
Uh may, maybe let's go back and see if there's
yeah.
anything I
Aquila's like, oh, maybe if we go back, I can get a message saying like, no,
yeah.
don't do that. That's bad. That's not what I meant.
I feel bad for both of them. I feel sympathetic to them. I mean, this is a completely desperate situation that is beyond the capacity to imagine like how you might behave in a situation like this.
Yeah.
But it's
I just thought it was interesting that like Lottie seems so sure of herself and she's the one who has the idea for Ben and all that. And but then like in this scene it's clear that she's not really
yeah, because
feeling
it's
like and she's in touch with this thing.
yeah, and it's not as if they're done, right? Like this is, and Sean even says we'll get better at it.
Yeah.
And to remind us that this is not a
They're
one-time
gonna have to keep
thing.
doing this.
It also, I just have to say, the feeding tube. I had when they first started doing it, I was like, oh my God, are they just gonna try to leave this feeding tube in? And it conjures up this image of factory farming,
Yeah.
and like when they talk about veal
Yeah.
farming and things like that, like
Yeah.
or foie gras or both. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's just ugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's revolting. It's revolting.
Anyway, this is sort of a transitional scene.
Yes, it is. It is. But yeah, I like that little touch because it does sort of clarify what Lottie's actually thinking when no one's there.
Yeah, it's also a different tree. Like in season one, there was this one tree
Yeah.
stump that she would go to all the time. And now it's just like, is this one special or any of them special? Or you just, are they
Yeah.
all?
It seemed like it's just a random tree that was like by the camp or
It just makes me
something.
wonder about her cosmology. But
Well, yeah, I feel like she's mostly making it up as she goes along, so it can be
yeah,
whatever.
but like, how does she? But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, there's a tree right there. How about that for an altar? Anyway, all right. So we go back to the present. Shauna gets in Ty's SUV with Van. She gives Van the tape, and Ty says, "Let's fucking listen to it," because she's got to be weird in every scene. Van puts the tape in and plays it, and they hear testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Oh my god, what is this? And we cut out at that point. We hear the rest later. It's definitely a tease here.
Yeah, yeah.
But
You watch
I
you. Yeah, the first time you watch it, you're like,
yeah, I mean my strong suspicion is that this is the woman we see at the end
yeah,
emerge.
yeah. Yeah, but what we do know the first time we watch is we don't recognize the voice.
Yeah,
That's something.
true, True. Yeah. But it's like initially, I mean, we were invited to think it was Melissa. Do we know what adult Melissa would sound
Yeah,
like?
no, definitely not.
So it's like it's not clear at this point what it's gonna be, but I
Yeah,
think later on it's kind of revealed more or less. I mean, it's not 100% clear, but there's a strong indication. Okay, so we'll come back to that. Lisa is making a delivery. Misty approaches, surprising her. Lisa says, "You can have the money. I don't want any trouble. Just leave my bike alone." Misty is standing next to it. Misty knocks it over, saying she wants to know who killed Lottie. Lisa says, "You think I did it?" And Misty says, "Well, she took all of your money and your freedom and your clothes." Lisa says, "I was in a cult that ruined my life. I don't recommend it, but she isn't a murderer." Misty asks if maybe she knows who the murder could be then. Lisa says, "You won't leave me alone." Misty says, "I took an oath and vacation days at work." Lisa says, "I'll talk, but we stay in the open," and Misty nods. Um,
right. We may recall. Well, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we may recall that the last time they saw one another, Misty tried to kill her.
Indeed, indeed, and honestly, like Misty looks threatening in the scene. The
Mhm.
way they shoot her, it's like I would be frightened if someone was looking at me like that.
Yeah,
She's got her like serial killer face on, and it's like, ugh.
yeah,
And yeah, and Lisa knows that she absolutely could be a threat, and so it sort of makes sense. Okay. But yeah, so the first thing I just want to say is this line that Lisa says, "I was in a cult that ruined my life. I don't recommend it." So like that is not what we are led to believe from all the way up to the end of season 2. Like the
yeah.
final thing that Lisa does in season 2 is try to save Lottie. And that's what leads to Natalie's death.
Yeah, this is either a retcon because or this is evidence that, as people who escape cults, then they go through a sort of deprogramming process and then they have a very different perspective on the experience that they went through. But I find it interesting because either way, it recasts the viewer's understanding of Lottie and that community, that intentional community she had created. And I mean, I think Lottie genuinely believed that she was helping people. I probably other cult leaders do too. But we also know that she is independently wealthy, so she doesn't need to fleece followers.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have any sort of sinister, like, we don't actually see her doing anything sinister.
Yeah.
And taking away the clothes, there's an explanation for that. So either the show is trying to rewrite that or is trying to rewrite the attitude of the only acolyte who we actually get to know at all.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is a little different from some of the stuff that kind of sticks in your craw. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's just one of those writing things. Because I think it actually is like it's a fundamental reframing because we watch, when we, the viewer, arrive at Lottie's camp and we're like, oh my God. Like the first things we see is somebody apparently buried alive. And
Hmm.
there's all these visual comparisons to these things in the
Yeah.
wilderness.
Symbol and all that.
Yeah, but then we see that scene where Natalie goes with Lisa to her mom's house with a
Yep.
goldfish. And, Natalie really seems to be getting better under the influence of Lisa's support and some of the things at the camp.
Yeah.
So, how
And you see what Lisa's getting away from, and that she seems healthier in this environment and so on. Like that's part of
exactly?
convincing Natalie that there is something worthwhile going on.
Exactly.
And and there's the thing Lisa says later about Natalie at the camp where I'm like, you just said I don't recommend it, it ruined my life. And then later on, she's gonna be like, yeah, well, Natalie was getting better and then you fucked it up. And it's like, which one is it, Lisa?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's the other thing that bothers me. I could live with the reframe if it was just that, and it's like, you know what? Yeah, that place was fucked up, and now I realize it. But then she defends like Natalie is like getting better there, and
Yeah, the line could have been subtly different in a way that allowed for that gray area. Like, um, because I understand she's trying to forcefully say, like, I understand why you might think that, but I'm not a murderer.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I don't like that line.
I don't either. It bugged me, so I had to say it. The other thing I wanted to mention was when Misty says, "I took an oath,"
Yeah.
because so like, well, okay, go ahead. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to think of that. It was just like, are you just talking about like the oath that you all took when you were rescued that like we have to protect one another? Like I mean, because that's a pretty expansive interpretation.
Which isn't necessarily something Misty would do. But yeah, that's pretty much what I thought. Like because we talked about it in the retrospective, like the way the way they talk about the wilderness and stuff in season one, it's like and like sort of stay in contact and so on. It's like they all made a pact off screen, and I was wondering if this was alluding to that there actually was a moment like in it where they got together and they were like, okay, when we go back we have to promise to never say anything about what happened out there and to always look out for each other or something like that,
Yeah, yeah.
you know like it
Yeah.
it feels like it might actually be true, and the fact that she was so specific, not just she was my friend, not just we had a bond, blah, 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 but like I took an oath. That is a specific statement. And we never saw Misty
Yeah.
take an oath.
Right, because if it's something like if it was something specific to I took an oath of fealty to Lottie, when I was a kid, it's like, well, that's not really in sync with how you showed up at the camp.
Yeah, totally not.
You thought she was
Yep,
crazy.
yep, totally. Totally.
So yeah, that's how I read that.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. It was interesting. Okay. Back in the SUV, they hear the tape with, and I'm just going to say what the subtitles say, female voices screaming, whooping, and someone yells, no, and they shut it off. And then Van says, the only people that even know about this are either us or dead. Ty wants to destroy it, but Van says this isn't the only copy. Shauna says it's a threat, but only to me. And I fucking collapse on the ground. Ty wonders if she still thinks this is Misty. Shauna admits that it's not Misty, but it came to her house and it was, quote, part of a series of events targeting me. And I collapse again.
Yeah.
Then she notices Callie's phone in her purse, recording them. She unlocks it and deletes the recording. So don't worry, it's deleted. Callie will never know.
That's funny. It's like Ty's thing about, let's just destroy it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Then she grabs the DAT player and says she has to go and gets out. Ty is surprised. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, obviously, I mean, I shouldn't say obviously. My interpretation here is I should actually say the female voice is screaming, whooping. I think that's the thing from the end of the episode in the past. And the no too. The no occurs. Lottie screams no later on.
Um,
I think that's who this is. Just for the record.
I missed that.
Yeah, it's the subtitles helped me a lot because there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of like chaos,
Yeah.
but there is a very distinct no that Lottie totally yells later. So anyway, I feel like all of that makes it pretty much cut and dry
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that is what this is from. Not to mention Van's line, the only people that even know about this are either us or dead.
Yeah.
So I feel like um, she's not saying uh, uh, like there's multiple implications in that line. It's first of all, it's that this could be coming from Melissa. She was one of us.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one thing. Or another one, because I'm not totally convinced it's Melissa yet, but just to say it absolutely could have been one of the Yell Jackets. They're the ones, they were there.
Yeah.
Obviously, they knew. Or dead. So to me, the implication of or dead is those two people are gonna die.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, what else is there to do with those
There
people?
isn't much else. Because if they live through
But
this, it's a
it's just
totally
straight up
different.
murder, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
And, the wilderness didn't ask you to do that.
I bet they interpret it that way though. I bet Lottie's like, "Oh, look, the
We
wilderness
have to, we
sent
have
a
to protect, yeah,
message."
yeah.
Yeah, some bullshit like that. When it's like,
But I mean, surely there's gonna be a conversation of like, how did you guys get here? Do you have a car? Take us there.
that's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
Like in the Fallout, like next episode, presumably, like it's gonna be. I'm curious to see how they deal with this because it does feel like this is the best hope of rescue that they've ever had, and it's like, and I feel like they could have even interpreted it as a fulfillment of the prophecy that they're eating Ben and
Yeah,
they're having
it's a
this.
bridge.
Yeah,
This is the
exactly. And
bridge.
like, but it's not gonna work out that way. So why not? Right? Like we already know
But it is
basically.
still a bridge, right? Like the thing that happened when you ate him made these people from the outside world show up.
Yeah.
It His death created a bridge to the outside world.
Yeah.
Prophecy fulfilled. And that's the problem
Just that
with
alone, and they
prophecy.
won't actually go home.
That
Like that
is
was
the
the problem.
problem with
Yeah,
prophecy.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can
yeah.
interpret it too many different
Right,
ways.
right, right.
And I specifically mean prophecy on television.
If it even is real prophecy, or if it's just a thing that you could then read into however you want. Harry
Mhm.
Potter, I'm looking at you. Anyway, or like it fulfills itself because you want it to.
But okay, yeah. But that's part of what I'm saying too is like we can read it, like we can retrofit a variety of scenarios to the prophecy. But anyway, but yeah, what you're talking about with Harry Potter. Well, no spoiler. This is no, you can spoiler Lost, but don't spoiler Harry Potter.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's yeah. Check out Harry Potter if you haven't. It's a good one.
Do you think everybody's heard of
Anyone
it?
heard of that? Is it okay if I mention that JP Tag? Anyway, or sorry, JP Morgan. Anyway, yeah. So the other thing that I mean, it wouldn't be me if I didn't complain about this. Is Shauna's multiple lines saying, "This is me. This is all about me. This is threats to me." It's a threat, but only to me. This is part of a series of events targeting me. When we started the episode with Shauna saying, and I quote, "Someone is trying to kill us." And
Yeah.
my whole question of like who's us and like none of this suggests us and now she's back to me and I'm like what changed Shauna, like why like were you just bullshitting, like I'm just confused, like here she's with the Yellow Jackets here, she could absolutely be specific and say this, she came, they came for Lottie was killed because of this and now, but she doesn't, she's like no it's just about me so y'all are
Yeah,
fine.
I don't have a rebuttal to that, but a couple of random observations I'll share. This envelope, because she didn't get the texts or the postcards in season 1
Right,
because they were from Jeff.
right.
So she hasn't experienced that. Um she seems to be the only one who received the tape,
Yeah.
so, um and also, is this kind of creating a parallel to the very selfish and sort of more isolated role that she's taking on in the past, and then emerge, she'll end this episode as their leader.
Mm-hmm.
Um or does she somehow think also that, like the viewer does, that this is coming from Melissa, and that this is like she knows something that hasn't been explicitly revealed. Like there's that scene in the bar where I thought she saw the person who's watching them, after Lottie's
Mm-hmm.
funeral. And like I thought there was a flicker of recognition. I thought when she asked the for a description of the person who answered the phone, like if she know first of all, if she knows what happened to that tape, if she knows that she held on to that tape, she's keeping all those diaries, but then she lost it at some point. maybe she knows Melissa took it,
Mm-hmm.
and Melissa sending this back to her, that there's some like personal reason that Melissa might be doing this to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I think the backstory supports that. It's just the inconsistency that's bothering
But
me.
what I'm saying is that maybe it isn't an inconsistency, but in this moment of realizing what the recording is, it reframes her understanding of why it
Oh,
has been
she's changed
sent
her
to
mind here.
her.
Okay.
Yeah, like it could be
Okay.
signaling that.
All right, fair enough. I'll buy that.
Or
Uh
not.
what?
Or not.
I,
I like to sit on a fence.
I will at least say that's plausible. Um, but I do want to say I'm so glad that she's finally like, yeah, it's not Misty.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so sick of that. There was a meme on Reddit that really made me laugh of like, it was like Shauna's like riding a bicycle. It's just a cartoon, but like, and she like puts a crowbar into wheels and the bicycle falls over and she's like, damn it, Misty.
Yeah.
Because it's just like
Hats off to that.
she's just been blaming Misty for
Yeah.
everything with absolutely nothing to support it,
Yeah.
other than like Misty is generally like weird and like maybe
Yeah.
suspect, but it's just
Yeah.
generic. And I'm like, all these people are sus, Shauna. You know, like I wouldn't trust any of these people. Like,
Yeah.
not just Misty, all right? Sure, she's a mess, but come on. Anyway,
Yeah.
it was a relief to me that we're off the like blaming Misty for everything train because that
Hmm.
shit was like really getting old to me.
Yeah.
All right. But obviously this is like, I mean, this is a big deal. So I mean something's happening going forward with this shit.
Yeah.
And I think like the season is starting to actually like coalesce a bit. What I am not convinced of yet is that this has anything to do with Lottie's death. I feel like there's
I
really
agree.
there's no indication here that there's any connection between those
Yeah,
things.
I agree.
Okay. So we go back to the past. At the caves, Aquila and Lottie are on another vision quest. The candle flickers, as we saw before. I think confirming your suspicion that it was the gas doing that. Aquila sees them all like frolicking at the camp, and then they sort of flicker into a circle, and then they flicker away as we hear, hello, where is everyone? I don't know who's saying this. It was on the soundtrack. So, anyway, I'm just reporting what I heard. Then we see a weird, like, stop motion bear. It looks like King Kong from the 30s or something. It's a really weird effect they're going for here. And the camp sort of flickers in and out, and the bear suddenly has a third eye, which I didn't notice the first time. Did you notice that?
I
Of
did.
course you fucking did. You always notice shit before I do it. Anyway, Akila wakes up and apologizes to Lottie, saying she doesn't know what it means. And Lottie tries to comfort her.
I also don't know what it means,
It's,
tequila.
it's not obvious what it means.
One thing that it could mean is that she has just gone into the cave with the same anxieties that were expressed earlier in the episode about not knowing whether any of this means anything, but the
Yeah.
bear showed up that one
Yeah,
time.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So she sees a bear. The third eye, is this like symbol of a different kind of sight, like a
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yeah.
premonitions, and
Third sight, if you will.
there's right. Yeah, sorry, I'm like really ineloquent. um
I don't think
the
that's a thing, but anyway, go ahead. Usually people say second sight. I just like the idea it's third sight because it's third eye. Anyway, like there's one sight in each eye. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
second sight, I've never heard
You've
that.
never second sight. Second sight is like psychic stuff. You know,
Ah,
it's like people say that. You know,
I thought they said sixth sense.
there's that too.
Okay.
Yeah, sixth sense, second sight.
Always a number and then something with an s.
Yeah, like an extra one that shouldn't be there. It's yeah,
Hmm.
it's along similar lines.
Okay, interesting. Um, and then yeah, the flickering of the camp being vacant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's weird.
Will they have to abandon the camp because of the encounter with these
Is it going to be a
people.
bear attack? A stop motion bear
I
attack?
I was wondering, but that was my first thought, that there would be a bear attack. But I don't know. Since it didn't happen in this episode, I'm just not sure that I buy that. But if, we've spoken numerous times about, they seem to be set up well. There's even a line in this episode about, winter's coming, yeah, but we're prepared. And
Yep.
it's like, well, something's gonna happen
Yeah.
that is gonna sort of overturn the table on
Unprepare
that.
them. Yeah.
And if it is that they have to abandon their camp in haste because of, an attack of some kind or something else. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. I'll buy all that. I don't have a clue. So, anyway, you ready to move on to the
Yeah.
next scene? Okay. So, back at the camp, Natalie is lying down in the candlelight on the verge of tears. Then she gets up. She walks out of the hut, noticed by Travis, and she grabs a knife. Travis asks her about the knife. She tells him to go back to bed. He says, "Don't do this. They won't forgive you." But she says she doesn't care. She says she has to do this if no one else will. Travis agrees to keep watch, but tells her to hurry. Sunrise is coming. Nat goes in to see Ben, who wakes up seeing the knife. He presents himself, saying, "Please." She hesitates, but finally stabs him, and after he says, "Thank you." She cries. Ben dies with relief. Outside the pen, Dawn has broken, and Travis holds Misty back with no sound. We're not allowed to hear the dialogue. He's like talking a whole lot, but they mute the dialogue. So he's just like holding her back. I think that's the idea. Nat comes out and drops the bloody knife. Misty is shocked and freaks out. The others see as well. Misty calls her a murderer. The others are shocked. Nat says she kept a promise. Misty goes to see Ben. She takes off his ropes and crosses his arm, and then she cries, and then she stops herself, snapping out of it. And then she kisses him and says, "Goodbye, Ben." So that's our
Yeah.
big
This was a really intense sequence. I don't really have anything to say about it, but it was very well done.
yeah, yeah. I think this is the ultimate fulfillment of the bond
Yeah.
between Natalie and Ben that was forged in season one
Yeah.
and continued even through season two and in this season when Natalie is like hiding the fact that she has some idea where he is, and she tried her best to keep him out of trouble but didn't succeed,
Yeah.
and like she only has so much power. So anyway, I think it makes sense that she's the one to go like, yeah, the hope, we can find hope in some other way. I can't really live with this, like this is just too much. um and like I'll accept the consequences.
Yeah.
And she gets another scene with Travis, which
Yeah.
is
I
again,
do like to see that back.
yeah. It's like, wow, such a flurry of activity after like nothing for
Yeah.
the previous part of the
And
season.
Travis, the way that Travis is like, don't do this. Not because it's
Yeah,
wrong, not because of the prophecy that,
yeah.
but they won't
They
forgive
won't
you.
forgive you. Yeah, it's about the consequences for
Yeah.
Natalie, not about the other stuff. So yeah, I think that again illustrates where Travis is standing on
Yeah.
this stuff. And then yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention was this is the thing we talked about
Yeah.
earlier, the Misty like hitting herself and like kind of snapping out of her empathy and going into a colder
Yeah.
place.
And you sort of see the effect that the situation is having on her.
Yeah.
And she's gone through a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's like on the one hand, I'm like, okay, yeah, Natalie killed Ben upon his begging her to.
Right.
You are torturing his ass. So like, I'm not convinced Natalie's worse than you, Misty. But anyway,
Yeah.
um,
It's a definite euthanasia kind of
very
situation.
so clear. I mean, he says thank you.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I don't consider this is if you want to go back to Shauna's thing, this is what I would call not murder per se.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is actually valid,
Yeah.
unlike fucking Adam Martin. Anyway, all right, but yeah, it's definitely high drama, but this isn't like a. This is getting us to a place, and it's cathartic, but yeah, it's not. This isn't like a mystery scene. So anyway,
Right.
we can move forward. But check it out, y'all, if you haven't. I hope you're not just listening to my recap, because it's not
It's
as.
a pretty inadequate
It's so
and
inadequate.
often misleading.
Very misleading. Yeah, I try to mislead you as much as possible. All right. So anyway, back at the camp, Nat says it was the right thing to do. Melissa says, "Shut the fuck up," and Gen agrees, pushing her down. Van says, "You don't get to decide for all of us." And Ty proposes that let's have another trial.
The
Um,
lawyer and
yeah, I
her.
know. We can resolve everything with a trial. Like, all right. I don't know. I'll take this Ty over the adult one right now. Anyway, Shauna says no more trial. She's obviously guilty, which is true. Shauna says Nat was a selfish leader, not doing what was right for them, but what she wanted to do. And Lottie steps forward and says, "Shauna will lead us." And I roll my eyes. They react. Shauna says, "I get that you are angry, but we're still a team and we honor our dead. So we will honor Ben as well and give the wilderness what it wants." Misty says, "What about Natalie?" And Shauna laughs and says, "She will prepare the feast."
It's bad. And now we hear them saying that what the wilderness wants is actually the cannibalism.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, it got blood. It got
Right?
blood.
Right?
Il veut du sang.
So, yeah.
Not il veut du human meat.
L'alimentation humaine.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That's how you
La
say that.
nourriture humanique.
Human. Well, yeah. So, yeah, I'm just going like, Shauna says now is a selfish leader, not doing what was right for them, but what she wanted to do. I'm just like, Shauna, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
see
not.
this as Natalie being selfish. I think
Definitely
that's
not.
bullshit. And you are
Definitely
one of
not.
the selfishest motherfuckers in this camp.
Yeah.
So I was just like, get on, like, give me a fucking break.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, Shauna
Yeah, I'm calling
mostly,
bullshit on that.
I felt like Shauna was mostly actually better this episode, and we'll get to some of that soon here. But like, this wasn't a great scene for Shauna when she gets crowned. And
Yeah.
like, why does Lottie have the authority to just declare who the leader is? Like, there's no reason they have to
She
listen to
declared the
her.
first leader.
It's I agree, but that was at the point where it was implied that she was the leader before that.
Yeah.
And I feel like it makes sense that the current leader could like abdicate and choose the next one. But like here, I'm just like, like, I don't know. I feel like they've mostly been blowing her off this season. So I could expect them to be like, nah, but I don't know, whatever. On the other hand, the idea of Shauna as the leader for various reasons makes sense here. So I'm not, I
Well,
don't
but the
find it
only reason
implausible.
why they're buying into this bridge thing at all and keeping him alive, the only reason they kept him alive in the first place was because of how Lottie,
Yeah,
it's because of Lottie.
that's true.
So there's obviously still that.
It's still there. It's true. It's true. It's just like if she was like, fucking
It's like there's got to be models of it. It's like these countries where people are still hardcore religious, and like where there's like a religious leader and a political leader.
yeah. Yeah. She's definitely that. She's definitely that. I agree. But if I just feel like if she was like Misty will lead us, they'd be like, nah, fuck that. That's a bad idea. The wilderness is wrong in
Yeah.
this case, Lottie.
Well,
Just
yeah.
step aside.
Yeah.
It's like Shauna was already kind of like, I feel like they were building us up for that in
Yeah.
many ways, including the bullying them all into the verdict
Yeah,
and
definitely.
the diary stuff and her like casting doubts on Natalie's like every decision and Misty going to her with the information.
That doesn't make Natalie can't be their leader anymore, and it doesn't make
Yeah,
sense that it be anybody else. Like
yeah,
Ty, I guess.
yeah.
But
That would probably be number two, and it still could be coming because
yeah.
I don't know how much I'm gonna like Shauna's leadership. I'm not totally convinced, even though she did mellow out a lot in this episode. Um, because of Melissa, I guess, but like, where is it going? Where is it going? Anyway, okay. Yeah, and it's interesting the way she frames this as like honoring their dead. Like, really? But anyway, they did have like funerals for
They
Jackie and or like sort of re-honoring ceremonies or
I mean,
whatever.
they sort of framed Javi in that way,
Yeah,
like to feel better about the fact that they were eating Javi.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
you know, so it does pick up on that thread. It's just weird outside of winter because they're not in a starvation
They don't need
situation.
to. They
But
absolutely could survive without
you
this.
know, now they can wait a little while before they sacrifice those bunnies or whatever.
That's true.
I don't.
That's true. So maybe he's the bridge, like I said in the beginning,
Yeah,
in like a different way from what I thought,
no,
but still.
we'll see.
Um, okay. So we go back to the present. Jeff tells Callie that things have been crazy lately.
Hmm.
Really. And tries to assure her that they have it under control.
Oh boy.
But Callie has one question about the card game. And they show their hands, but Callie wins. Shauna comes in and wants to talk to Callie. Jeff gets the hint and leaves. Shauna confronts Callie about recording them. Callie says she has the right to know and says she's the same age as Shauna was when she was in the wilderness. She didn't say that, but that was the implication. Shauna tells her to go before she does something she regrets. Callie says she wanted to be close to Shauna, and she thought she wanted that too. And Callie leaves and looks at her phone, seeing that the recording is preserved as recently deleted.
There's a lesson
Fucking
there, folks.
fucking elder millennials don't know how technology works. Anyway, I know you can delete those permanently, and that's what she should have done. She should have fucking wiped the phone. That's what Misty would have done. Anyway,
True.
okay. We'll come back to that presumably. Although not in this episode. We don't actually see Callie listen to it. We just see that she sees it's there.
Yeah.
Okay. In the past. Nat is in the butcher's uniform with Ben's body on the table. Shauna's there as well. Nat takes off the necklace. Shauna gives advice and covers his face to help, and she hands Nat the knife. So, I mean, I described this pretty vaguely, but like, what I thought. Did you want to say something about this?
I no, go ahead.
What I thought was interesting about this scene is that Shauna's actually gentle with Natalie here. She really could like I would expect her to just be rude and hostile this whole time and like try to
Yeah.
make it as bad as
Yeah,
possible.
I mean, it sort of seems like now that she's gotten, like, she feels like her snub has been corrected. Like, now she's
Yeah.
the leader. Like, that she was part of why she was being so hostile was that she felt disrespected by being passed up. But I also think I mean, that's the necklace, right?
Yeah. The heart
I mean, he
necklace.
wasn't wearing it when she killed him, right?
I
Or
assumed he
had he
was
been
still
wearing it
the execute
since the firing
the
squad?
faltered. Yeah, I
Why
assumed.
did they take it off? I didn't notice it was so okay. All right. Well, in that case, okay.
I mean, I don't know that for sure, but it just is what I assumed.
Yeah, I was like, so they put it on to butcher him or to do something else with him, but then they took it off again.
Yeah.
Fine, whatever.
Yeah.
All right, he's been wearing it since the firing
That's what I
squad.
would assume. Yeah. Because I don't
I
think.
just like I really want I'm looking forward to learning more about how they use the necklace as the ritual evolved
Mhm.
because of the line where in earlier in the season when Adult Letty tells Shauna it never meant what
It
you
never met.
thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm sure if you could ask Lottie what she meant by that, she'd be like, I don't remember
I don't
saying that.
remember saying
What are you
that.
talking about?
Yeah.
I gotta go. I got shit to do, okay? Some people are important and busy. Okay. Anyway,
I got some Chinese food to order.
but yeah, I just like I think you're right that that is the point, but I feel like Shauna could still be um petty. Like the way she was before,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
would expect her to still be bitter at Natalie and like continue to take it out on her. And like that previous scene where she laughs and says she will prepare the feast. Like it seems like she's gonna like, but then she's like, no, you could cover his face, and she's giving her directions, and it's all very like, I'm trying to make this easy for you. You know, like she's helping, and so anyway, I don't know, it was good for me because it brought back something closer to the teen Shauna that I remember from earlier in the
Yeah.
show, and less the awful version that she's been this season.
Yeah.
Okay. So we go back to the present. Lisa says to Misty, last time I saw her, she ordered a bunch of food and gave a $50,000 tip. The envelope that she left just said, I'm sorry. Misty wonders if she asked any questions. She didn't, meaning Lisa didn't ask any questions, just to clarify. Misty mentions Natalie's death. Lisa emphasizes that it was Misty's fault. Misty says that she and Nat had a complicated relationship. Then Lisa says she was getting better, but you fuckers couldn't let her go from a thing that ruined your life and that you don't recommend. Really,
Yeah,
Lisa?
yeah, yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
It just bugs the shit out of me. All right. Misty says they had a bond that she can't possibly understand. And Lisa says she doesn't care, but there is no murderer. Charlotte fell down a flight of stairs. Misty doesn't buy it. Lisa says if you must pursue this, start with your friends, saying that Thaisa met with Lottie the day she died. Lisa saw them. Misty is surprised. All right.
Yeah. Well, one quick thing, because we've spent so much time talking about the mirror scene with Lottie apologizing,
Yep.
is this is a potential answer that maybe she was just trying to get her apology right for when Lisa would come to deliver the food. And then maybe she felt that she couldn't actually do it face to face and just wrote, I'm sorry on
Yeah.
the envelope.
I think that's
Um,
valid. I think that's valid. I'm willing to believe that. I think there's two ways it could go. The one way is that way, and the other way is she was generally apologizing to multiple people, and we don't know what the other one was going to be.
yeah, I'm still holding on to a belief that we're gonna see something else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it could have been that. And I'll tell you what else. Um, I was thinking, which is that this thing, like getting $50,000 and going to see Lisa and saying I'm sorry, like this is reading to me like it could have been a suicide thing.
Uh-huh.
Like she was trying to make amends,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so like now throwing herself down the stairs is a weird ass way to kill yourself, but maybe she got someone to do it. I don't know, but or maybe she was gonna do it and then someone
The
showed
guy
up.
pushed her down.
I don't know,
Yeah.
like yeah, yeah, maybe she got the bad one to do it, you know. um
Oh.
just an idea.
Ooh, what if Lottie knew that it was the bad one and somehow I don't know.
Yeah,
Because it seems like Lottie should know. Like she should have some power of
to like
perception.
sense it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree. But yeah, I like it's just I'm I'm moving away from banana peel but I'm not convinced by murder yet.
Uh-huh.
This just feels to me like Lottie like making peace with her
Yeah.
life before she dies. Like
Yeah,
that's how
maybe.
it looks. So like I'm leaning in that direction right now that it's some
Yeah.
scenario along those lines. Um but
I mean, the candles seem to fit with that.
yeah, totally. I'm not convinced it's murder, and I'm not convinced that it has anything to do with the tape or with the breaks in the freezer, which
Yeah, I definitely don't think that.
I'm not convinced have anything to do with anything besides bad coincidences. But the tape is something for sure. For the record. Okay. I already complained about Lisa, so I won't do that again. Um, and oh yeah. Thaisa meeting with Lottie. So that's like a thread that we got to
Yeah.
pick up.
Yeah.
That's a thing that she was definitely hiding from Van and accounts for that time period. Um, where she was so busy. Anyway,
Yeah, but I mean, if the bad one wants more power, killing Lottie seems like a good way to get it.
that's true. That's true. I'm not ruling it out. I'm just not convinced yet. We'll see. I've been wrong before, and I've been wrong on this podcast. So
You know, like
anyway,
the call of like, you said that,
hmm
you know,
yep. Yep, and she bows her off, so it's like that's weird. I don't know. It's interesting that they met because it suggests. I mean, Lottie didn't act like she wanted to meet with, so it suggests that Taissa sort of confronts her in
Yeah.
person.
Yes.
I don't know how she knew that she was at this restaurant, but anyway, like, did you
Yeah,
just
I
see her
mean,
randomly?
again, I call back to like the thing with Crystal, like trying to back away from Misty and falling over the cliff. If Thaisa confronts Lottie,
Yeah,
Lottie realizes this is the bad one.
yeah.
She's trying to get away. She falls
Yeah.
down the
Yeah,
stairs.
yeah, yeah. It absolutely could be that, which would be like a half murder, sort of like the Crystal thing was,
Yeah.
as opposed to like the direct, like,
Yeah.
pushing her down the stairs. Actually, another explanation occurred to me, which is Lisa's clearly like doing bicycle delivery, so she could have just done a delivery to Lottie's place, and um, that's where she saw Ty. Like Taisa went there because that's where Lottie was living you know this like because I was imagining Taste at the restaurant, but
Oh,
maybe she wasn't
no.
at the restaurant.
I
Oh,
didn't
okay,
anticipate it.
sorry, that was what's going on in my head. All right.
Yeah, or like she orders a ton of food. Seems to be a suggestion that she could have ordered the food for. So we know Thaisa has
Yep,
this like massive
for
appetite.
both of them. Yeah, 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 you're right, that actually fits with Tice was already there,
Yeah.
which would make sense. But I guess, yeah, then the question would be, how did Tyson know that Lottie was there, since like the previous episode seemed to suggest that none of them knew about this place. Um, so that would be
Yeah,
the extra layer.
there are ways to find these things out.
There are
I'm
for
not
sure.
particularly perturbed.
I'm not perturbed. I'm just curious. Okay. Just because like
Yeah.
this is a big mystery for the season,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I'm
of
just curious about the
course.
details of how this actually played out. Okay. But that's a significant reveal, and it did come from the trash, which came from the trip to the thing. So anyway, this is another bit of concrete stuff that's finally been yielded from what seemed like a nothing burger in the previous episode.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else or
No.
okay. So we go to the next scene. Van sits up in bed Googling, but they don't show the logo because they
Right.
can't. But it's obviously Google, and they just like blurred the
They
logo.
blurred it out.
I mean, blurred out isn't right. They white it, like
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
blanked it.
Yeah.
But it's Google.
Search engineing.
Search engineering. There you go. And what she Googled was, how long do DAT tapes last outdoors? Which I think is a clear indication of what's going on, if we weren't already clear on it, which I think we were. And then Ty sits up suddenly saying, Van, please, you gotta help me. And Van is concerned, saying, what the fuck? And then the bad one takes over, getting up and asking why she's still up and saying she should sleep. Van looks concerned.
Yeah, she makes that face that she's conveniently
Yeah,
not made this season because they didn't want to make it
they were hiding
obvious.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. She did the bad one face for
the bad one
sure.
face.
Yeah, she's got that down. It's like
Yeah,
always both of them. It's always obvious when they want to communicate that that's what it is. Like they got a thing that they do.
yeah,
I don't really know what it is exactly, but it's very obvious. So this is one I believe. Like I believe that she sat up and actually said this,
uh-huh.
and that it was like in sleep, like the Thaisa that's in there was able to like come forward for a bit, and she's like sort of trapped. Like that's what it seems like. She's been suppressed.
Yeah,
I mean, there's been this is like a possession
it
story.
is. Yeah,
Like that in more of a supernatural horror, this would be like a demon possessing her or
yeah,
something. Here I don't think it's that. I think it's really just she's gone over into this like dark side of herself, sort of like what Misty does in that scene earlier. I feel like that's the way I'm reading it, because I'm a supernatural skeptic, but nonetheless, I do think the basic point that it's the bad one in control for this whole season is true. And Van has, like, I think probably finally realized it in this scene. I think the earlier scene was like, multiple earlier scenes were heading in that direction, but I think this is like, okay, well, shit, like this is gonna
yeah,
be a problem. So I think this is the end for them in this episode. So that's something we will probably pick up with next week.
yeah.
Okay.
Exorcist episode.
Exorcist. Yeah. Oh man, they could totally do that. In the next scene, Misty sits at home and she sends Ty a text saying, "We need to talk." And then Carl's results arrive. They have a DNA profile, but it's no good without something to compare it to. Caligula squawks to send it to Walter, so Misty does. That's what I heard.
Yeah, obviously.
She took it
I
that
know
way too.
you
She's
speak
like, "Oh,
parrot.
okay."
You speak parrot. Yeah. Yeah, well, right. So I feel like since people are listening for evidence that we pay attention, I will just point out that when she hears the squawk and she looks over, she sees the plaque that we saw Walter welding to the
Yeah,
cage.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that is presumably,
No, I think Caligula said, "Send it to Walter."
obviously, I'm not arguing that. It's just reinforcing it, especially for viewers who don't speak parrot.
He gave the best baths. This is actually where we end the adult
Yeah,
part of the story, and again, we're setting something up. Like
yeah,
we know Walter has Shauna's hair,
yeah,
so I think he will, at the very least, compare the sample to that.
yeah.
And Shauna's involvement or not will hopefully become clear. It's definitely open that it could have happened. Even though like I don't really buy it, but nonetheless the suspicion is there in full view. um and that's all he has for now, so like maybe like they'll get Van to.
She sends a follow-up text to Ty and bring your hairbrush.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, oh yeah, I guess Misty could, if she meets up with Ty, like maybe she could get the thing. I was gonna say maybe try to
Same.
rope Van in to get something, because she has access to Ty's like personal things. But anyway, there's multiple ways that could play out. But I
Mhm.
think they'll have to do that because I am pretty much convinced that Van's not involved and that Misty's not involved. Shauna and Ty are the most suspicious looking here, and Ty being number one for sure,
Yeah.
since it's confirmed that she lied about meeting with
Yeah.
Lottie
Yeah.
on the day she died, and she wasn't shocked either. Okay. So then we go back to the past. They sit around the campfire eating Coach Ben's feast. The feast of Coach Ben, I should say.
Please, yeah.
He didn't make it
Well,
in a literal sense. Okay. Uh, it is made of him.
yeah, mitochondrial food preparation.
Um, Mari tells Natalie that what she did was really, really, and Nat says, "I know."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's interesting. They don't quite say what she's gonna say. Anyway, I'm gonna come back to
I
that.
like that.
Mari says she shouldn't have done it, but still seems sympathetic.
Yeah.
That's my read. Van tells Ty that she was right. Shauna seems better. Misty eats and hums. Lottie says, "This is wrong. This isn't how it's supposed to happen." And then we hear what the subtitles call whispering, comma, laughter. Lottie looks around at the others, and we get a little like VHS flicker, which
Yeah.
indicated fantasy sequence before. So I don't know what to make of that. And Lottie screams. And then the subtitles again, creature rattles, comma, screams. Lottie gets up, hums, eats, looks at the fire. Creature again. Lottie says, "Sing." And Lottie sings. Creature again. The others join. Lottie eats and jumps. Travis doesn't join initially. They all get up, and we hear singing on the soundtrack as they frolic around Lottie. Then Lottie sees someone emerge from the woods saying, "Ben?" The others continue, but Aquila and Travis notice as well. Lottie says, "No!" This is the thing I was referring to earlier, which I think is on the tape. As we see two people, a man and a woman, approach the camp next to Ben's severed head. The man says, "Hello." He has something around his neck, some kind of device. A DAT recorder, perhaps? I don't know, but there's something there.
Surely.
They all look on in shock. And after a beat, the man looks over and sees Ben's head, recoiling and saying, "What the fuck?" as we go to credits.
Yep.
Wild ass scene.
Wild scene.
So much going on
Wild.
here.
We hear that female vocalizing
Yep,
thing
yep. That
that they
they
use a lot.
on the soundtrack.
The
Yeah.
flicker. Yeah. What is the meaning of of her hearing these imagined like whispers and laughter?
Hmm.
And you know, mm,
Yeah, I guess we're supposed to believe this is like Lottie thinking she's hearing the wilderness or something. I don't know. That's how it comes off to me. She was like,
yeah.
"Answer me," and like I feel
Uh-huh.
like she's seeing this
Mm.
as like some kind of answer for
Yeah, and this
this.
like this howling that happens and the singing and this idea of like maybe it's like this isn't right, like we can't just sit here and quietly eat this. This isn't a fulfillment of
Yeah,
what the wilderness wants. You know, the wilderness wants this like raucous festival kind of environment. We're howling, we're dancing around in circles, we're jumping.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. So like as far as the creature noise thing goes, like it definitely feels like overpromise to me, because they did have Ben hear it too in the caves,
Yes.
and he hasn't, like that's not something you catch from other people. It's something you can sort of experience in a group environment, but he was totally separate from them
But the
before.
gas, you know, he's been living with them
That's true. There is a
since.
gap, but it's just weird to me that he has like the same hallucination that they
Yeah,
have.
yeah, and you know, I think there are natural connections that people would make living out in the wilderness,
Just
and
being in the
one is
wilderness and hearing nature noises or something.
and like this fear of the dark
Predators and
idea, predator.
stuff.
Yeah, like there's this like latent you know, lizard brain thing of
Yeah.
like when you live in this like pitch black at night dark wilderness surrounded by who knows what.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'll buy that. I'll buy that. I feel like it is, we're invited to think it's something like, or they're interpreting it as the spirit of the wilderness.
Yeah, yeah,
Like that's how they're seeing it. Um the VHS flicker is curious. It feels inconsistent with the way they showed it before, but again, if they are having a mass hallucination of the creature thing, then maybe it sort of fits in that way. I don't know. Um, I also wanted to like jump back to this thing where Mari tells Natalie that what she did was really, really. I it definitely seemed implied to me that she was gonna say, I don't know, like merciful. I'm not really sure exactly what the
yeah.
word she was gonna use there was, but like necessary, but I don't know what it was, but it definitely seemed like she was like sort of coming from the Travis place of like,
Yeah,
you shouldn't have done that because it was bad for you, but like it
it
was
was
the
the
right
right
thing
thing
to
to do.
do.
Yeah, definitely. And it picks up on that relationship that Mari had with
Yeah,
Ben from earlier in the season. And like it's I almost feel like Mari doesn't actually have a word for what she wants to say.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like brave, correct, merciful. Yeah, like there's just but yeah, that is the vibe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's just continuing the Mari redemption arc this season. Like Mari's just like on it in a different place. Even though, like you said in the season 2 retrospective, she wasn't as bad in season 2 as we remember, but she was definitely worse than she's been this season.
Definitely.
So like I just think it's interesting they give us another moment where Mari seems to be on the right side here, at least from
Yeah,
my
yeah.
point of view. Because I think he absolutely deserved
Yeah.
mercy there.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the vision of the person walking away that Lottie interprets as Ben.
Oh, I thought it was one of these
Was it one of the
two
people?
arriving, and she just
Mhm.
interpreted it as Ben
Well, that was
initially.
what I was wondering was like, is this, yeah, one of the people, um, one of the people, but walking sort of not in the right direction, right? Because isn't he like walking away?
I'd
Or
have to
is
watch
it
again. I
like
thought he was coming towards
she's
them, but
okay? Let's watch that again because I was like, is this her seeing like I guess is this a vision that more directly connects Ben to these people? Like in terms of picking up on the bridge.
hmm,
Like he walks out and in walk these two tangible people.
sure, yeah.
I don't know.
Whereas I thought it was just a misinterpretation, and it was actually so. Like,
Yeah.
if he was walking away, then my read would be that they were separated. He came and saw that there was a camp there and then went back to
I
get the
went
other
back and got
one.
the yeah.
And then they show up. Like that would be my read of that. Cause you know me, I'm always leaning on the it's a realistic thing.
Yeah.
So I want to believe this is just Lottie being wrong. But if she really saw Ben and then it's the other, like that works too. I'm not against that.
Yeah.
That's not out of the question.
Yeah. It's worth rewatching. It was one of those things where I was like, oh, I want to rewatch this.
It's a
And then
shadowy
I
figure.
didn't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, we can review the tape and you know, you decide. What do you think it was? But yeah, I'm definitely inclined to lean in the other direction
Yeah.
just because it seems plausible that we know there are
Yeah,
people
yeah,
there.
yeah. There's no reason for them to think that there are people there, and then we find out that there are.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And yeah, it's interesting. It's well, it's quite an ending, I will
it's quite an
say.
ending.
I'm sorry, JP Morgan, but I just want to note that the first time in Lost when someone shows up on the island from the outside is about 2/3 of the way through season 3. And
Oh
it's
boy.
Naomi. And I just think it's notable that they get
Oh
to a similar
boy.
place at a similar time.
The
Just
human
saying.
mind creates patterns.
Just saying. No, of course, I don't think that was like intentional. I just think like there's a logic to that narrative,
Yeah, that at a
sort
certain
of.
point infuse some new characters.
Exactly.
Yeah, shows find ways to infuse new characters, but yeah, some shows it's a lot harder
Yeah.
to contrive such a thing.
I didn't think the show would do that.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
Well, not in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Like I thought it was basically predetermined that they were going to be the only ones out there the whole time.
Right.
I don't think the world knows that they ran into some random nature like I don't know exactly what they're doing, but you know, they have gear
Yeah.
on. It seems like they're like exploring the wilderness in some way, maybe camping or hiking or whatever.
Hmm.
Um whatever the dat's for. Maybe they're birders or maybe they're
Yeah.
whatever else you would do with the dat in nature. But yeah, like it's a game changer to have this like for the
It
teen
is.
timeline and for the implications going forward. Is this in the
As we
diary,
see.
Jeff, or the journal? Is it there? Is it there?
Ooh.
Does she talk about this shit? Because I
Interesting.
feel like if she didn't, she's fucking omitting some significant
That's an
details.
interesting question. Yeah.
Especially because
Maybe she stopped. Go ahead.
the tape comes from this,
Yeah.
you know, so it's just like if Jeff, you know, I feel like
Yeah.
it should come up,
Yeah.
you know.
She was just so consumed with her new leadership role and her new girlfriend that she just
Didn't have time to write in the
dropped
journal.
off the journaling thing.
Yeah, and it's also kind of amusing to me that they play this ending like kind of for comedy, even though it's like horror comedy or something.
Yeah.
Because like Ben's head is in the foreground the whole time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's just like standing there like hello, like very casually, and like clearly doesn't see
Hmm.
it. And then like when he sees it, it's like
Yeah.
you know, like he's not expecting, and there's clearly a reaction from them too, like of like oh shit, like what does this mean, like, and I feel like it really should mean, if it doesn't mean going forward, like, well, how did you get here, how do we get back to civilization, like if they're not lost there, it's going to be hard for me to accept. Like, is someone going to step up and kill them and destroy their only chance of, or their chance to be rescued at this point? Or are they actually lost there, Blair Witch Project style, and they can't get out?
Yeah.
And so they just end up dying as a part of, you know,
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge question that
the general scheme. It
we're
just,
gonna have to answer. The fallout of this is gonna be huge.
it's one of the things that makes me wonder, along with like who got the dat and who brought it back to the real world and who is dropping it off now and what is that supposed to mean. I will say it opens up some other possibilities now that we know what the tape was.
Yeah.
It opens up the possibility that it's someone connected to these people.
Yeah. There's a third camper,
Yeah.
wilderness biologist, whatever, runs off in the freaks out, runs off in the car.
Yeah.
maybe that shadowy figure that she thinks is Ben
Could be a
is a
third
third
person.
person.
Another possibility is that it is Melissa or some other Yellow Jacket, but they contacted someone related to those people and like
Mhm.
got them involved. Something there's a lot of
Yeah.
there's more possibility here than what I thought before
Yeah.
of like what the thing means because it's alluding to this like specific moment that we had no reason to think had happened. They never talked about this before. Oh yeah, remember that time when it was like
Yeah.
rando showed up? Like
Yeah.
no one ever said that shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's a crazy new element to the story. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for the next episode where
Yeah,
we will get all
definitely.
these answers. I am certain.
I think we'll at least get an answer or two, but I think
We'll
yeah,
get some.
I think we might have to wait till the end of the season to get more fuller answers of what the tape's about and how it's connected and like development on what happened with these people and stuff. But yeah, the narrative hits a good point in both timelines. I felt like
Yeah.
it really kind of came together here in a way that I appreciate. The only thing, like I said, that I'm not convinced of is that this has anything to do with Lottie. It really seems to me like Lottie's thing is a separate thing,
Yeah.
and it'll be just like in season one with Travis and the postcards, right? There was no connection.
Yeah.
Like it really feels to me like they were like, you know what? I'm not happy with how that resolved in season one. Let's redo the same idea and get a better resolution this time.
Could
That's
be.
that's how I'm reading this because it's like yeah, we didn't get enough out of that. That just kind of like was a wet fart at the end. Let's do a drier fart this time.
Oh boy.
I don't know. Are dry farts better? All right. So anyway, that's all I got.
Yeah.
So
Can't wait for next
any
week.
further comments? No,
No,
good to go.
that's it.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll be back next week with whatever the fuck it's called, some jokey ass title as usual, I'm sure. But until then,
Buzz,
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 buzz.
buzz.
It's gonna be weird when they find out, the listeners find out that we are actual Yellow Jackets.